Testing. We're gonna get good morning, first of all, to everyone. We're gonna get ready to kick off and start our conference here for the year. Hopefully, everyone had a safe, good trip up this morning. We're gonna go ahead and begin the program. It's 9:31 now. With the opening session for this morning, starting off with our welcome. And if you have your programs, you notice there that says Dr. Brian Cornelius, ALFDC Board Chairman. Well, Brian, he called me and he was not able to make it, so I'm not Dr. Cornelius, but he wasn't able to make it this morning. And so I'm Corey Farmer, service vice chair here with the board. And he asked me to stand in this morning to provide the welcome greetings to you. And so I welcome you to our 42nd annual conference with ALFDC and ALCDC. Me personally, I've been attending these conferences now for more than 20 years. It seems like a long time, but every year I can honestly say I look forward to attending and participating, seeing the familiar faces. I know the audience, we come in a time now transitioning where we don't have as many here, but we also, as I understand, have our virtual audience in attendance as well. So we welcome you as well if you're joining us virtually. But again, I always look forward to these conferences. There's often, good networking opportunities, definitely excellent presenters and information that is shared. And so once again, even this year, even though as we're transitioning and glad that we're able to actually meet here in person today. So glad to see those of you that were able to make it here. But definitely looking forward again to that networking opportunities, fellowship, smell food already. So we're looking forward to that as well. And the good presentations and information that will be shared throughout the day, to help us as we prepare here in the present and look to the future for our theme here, the legacy of equity and equality for all, and what does the present and future hold. So as we're going through today, hopefully we're learning and getting information that'll help prepare us as we move forward. So without any further comments, again, welcome to everyone. We have next on the agenda, Dr. King, who is our president here, and he's going to come and provide the conference overview, and then we will follow with the introduction of our speaker for the morning by Mr. Alvin Peer, who is the outreach coordinator, state outreach coordinator for NRCS, and then he will introduce our morning speaker for the morning. We proceed there. So thank you.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Before we proceed, I'm going to call on a person, and I call on them all the time. We've been taking up a lot of this time this week, but if he would give us just a brief word of prayer, Mr. Alvin Peer, if you would, please.
Let's pray. Father God in heaven, we come, Father, thank you for once again having us together. Father, it's been 2 years of COVID where we've had to do virtual, Father, but at this appointed time, you're allowing us once again to break bread and fellowship together to discuss our natural resources and the things that you prepared for us down through the years. Father, so as we go forth, thinking about the past, concentrating on the present, but more than anything, looking into the future in which you hold all the cards. We together all say, thank you, and amen.
I want to also, at this point, before I get into the overview, give both recognition and some news that I got this week and other this morning that really stunned me. And just not knowing COVID has had a very serious effect upon us, both from a communication perspective and where things have not been the norm. As our president, Dr. Cornelius said, we are going to try this year to begin to make a comeback. 2 years involved in doing things virtually and getting people back saying we're comfortable in being out and being around others and being able to have that visual as the point of dealing with our communication and understanding each other. But recognition goes to Mr. Joe Bryan, and Reverend Joe Bryan, and normally we would have him have those pictures in our program. This is not a point of an oversight, it's a point of just not knowing, not knowing, and we did not know. Ms. Bryant, again, our late condolences, we apologize for that wholeheartedly. Reverend Bryan was one of our founding members with the organization over 42 years ago. His contribution was enormous. Both his knowledge and understanding of the farmer, he was a mentor to our youth and working with them in our youth program. He was a mentor to other farmers. He was a mentor to me and other staff people who've been a part of this organization. And, I think it's only fitting, not having it in the program of the information, that we give both that recognition and bring it to the attention of the public. And Brian, sincerely apologize for that. And I was totally in shock, to get that news this morning. The other member, one of our founding individuals, and I got this news day before yesterday, was Dr. Davis, Dr. Lawrence Davis. And of course, James Davis just got the news this morning when I told him. Dr. Davis was one of the founding members with the organization, served on the board of directors for a number of years, and then he appointed and would always have a liaison or someone representing the university as part of the partnership with the organization, and that still continues today. But we also lost Dr. Davis. So again, the family and any of those who are listening virtually as well, we offer our condolences and our apologies, that we weren't there. We weren't there. We did not send information or resolution giving that recognition. Another one that was lost, and we did give recognition to, was Mr. Harvey Williams, who was also a mentor, a farmer, and a very serious supporting member. We did get information on that. We gave recognition, and some of you probably saw it in the program. Those who saw the program when it was posted, to our website, I think it was year before last year. So again, we've had losses. We have lost both an opportunity to come together and to be together and to give recognition, to those who are a serious part of the legacy of our history and what both the organization represents, as well as being a part of the history of the legacy of African-American farmers and limited resource and minority farmers here in the state of Arkansas. So I wanted to do that. I want to also give recognition to a person who is here. And this is a historic landmark that was founded back in 1890. Historic landmark. Founded, African-American landmark that was founded in 1890. That still exists. And this is the Cunningham Homestead. Would you raise your hand? Listen, the Cunningham Homestead. Now, I want you to also know that Miss Corrine Cunningham was the first African-American woman to both farm and gin her own cotton at her own cotton. at her own cotton gin. Now, that's a part of history, and so when we say the theme of the conference itself, and we are talking about, the legacy of equity and equality in itself. This is a part of the legacy. This homestead is a part of the legacy. This family is a part of the legacy. And when you start to talk about land ownership, agriculture, and the contributions and what they have done over the years of raising families and contributing to the economy itself. And that homestead still exists, roughly about 300 acres of land. They're still holding on to the land. While they're residing in Illinois right now, they've made their way, as I said, They've made their way from Illinois to be at this conference today. And we ought to give them another hand for that. I do want to say this, in far reaching, our membership is not just within the state of Arkansas, and this is representation of that it is linked back to those who have roots in Arkansas and see fit to be a member and a part of the organization, and they get the information, they get the newsletter, and that's how they know about the conference, and that's why they know they're here, and they understood and like what the theme itself is all about, because they know they are the living legacy itself, the homes, and the next generation who is here with them as well. As a quick overview point, one, yesterday was our youth day. Conference was, didn't have a lot, and that was intentional, but we would have like 200 students here, but we did have a good turnout. The winner of the oratorical leadership contest was a student from Clarendon, Arkansas High School. The second place winner was from Brinkley, Arkansas. The winner for the highest number of participation was also Clarendon High School. And of course, they were recognized with a continuing education stipend award that went to those students who participated in the oratorical leadership part of the program. Very quick overview. We're going to have a panel discussion this morning. So when we leave the table here, and after the morning speaker, we will go to our panel discussion. And we have basically 5 areas that will be talked about. One is going to be over conservation program and services with USDA. Mr. Mike Sullivan is on the panel. Our state conservation will be talking about all the program areas. And I'm not going to go through any details. The facilitator will deal with that. The other area that's going to be talked about is Farm Service Agency, farm financing, access to financing and other program services that they're saying. Then we have USDA rural development, and they will be talking about program services and possibly some of the changes that's occurred over the years, particularly with the American Rescue Plan and with the Inflation Reduction Act. The other area we're going to have Department of Human Services, and we have Mr. Pizzini who is here, and he will talk about market opportunities for those who are both the small limited resource farmers and what we call urban farmers. We call them micro-urban farmers. So they may be rural, but they're micro farmers, and they are compatible with the urban farm population. He'll be talking about market opportunities, new market opportunities, and what it is offering now as it relates to equity and equality, particularly those market program and market opportunities to schools and back to the food bank for the minority communities. How you can participate, how you can be involved, and how they're providing for equal access and opportunities in an equitable manner from that perspective. The other one that's going to be here and that will be online will be Mr. Ben Mason. Mr. Mason is with Cargill. We've been fortunate enough to get a relationship with Cargill as part of their equity program and working with the minority population as well. Dr. Goldman may speak to that as well. I know he's doing some work back with them. We're fortunate to gain a relationship with them. He will be speaking virtually and what that equity equality program represents with Cargill Corporation and the private sector perspective in support of those things and what we're doing, both from an urban and micro farm perspective, as well as other things that we do in our outreach programs and technical assistance and accessing resources with USDA for the limited resource and the underserved population, economically disenfranchised individuals. That's pretty much so the overview of our program and what you will hear today. Now, I don't, in my closing, I'm gonna take my seat behind this. No, there are, this is the thing I was, sometimes we can see something and it is not what it appears to be. You see things and not what it appears to be. Imagine you see a chain fence area and there are two dogs, a pit bull and a Rottweiler. And you take a walk past this area for a period of time and you are very comfortable in doing that because you assume that things are the same. And that pit bull and Rottweiler, no matter how much noise they make, that it can do no harm to you. So that's an assumption, that things are the same. But can you imagine going past this pit bull and Rottweiler? I'm gonna put myself in that position and walking past, taking my early morning walk at my age. And this particular morning, the owners didn't lock the gate. But my assumption is that things are as they have always been. Well, now I would be in a very detrimental situation as a result of that. It could be detrimental for me. My point in particular, I can't run very fast. So, but my point is this. You're going to hear things today. And if you may think it is the same as it has been always, but it's not the same. So I hope you pay very close attention. My other point is that if you fail to pay attention and you fail to get the information that's going to be made available to you, it is something that could prove to be wholly to your disadvantage. That you do not seize the opportunity or those opportunities that's being made available now, particularly when you talk about the disenfranchised or underserved communities and the economically disenfranchised population, be it directly affects you or it affects your community. And if you read the statement that I have in my letter to you, you'll understand about Dr. Martin Luther King. You will understand what I'm saying if you're not where you ought to be. So again, information not the same. American Recovery Act, definitely not the same as what normal and what legislation has been over the years. Neither is the Inflation Reduction Act. So hopefully you will pay attention to that and don't be like me going past the chain fence, thinking things are the same way as it used to be. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and good morning once again. Great words, Dr. King, because things are not like they used to be always. And it takes those opportunities to change. And that brings me to what I'm here today for. It brings me pleasure to bring before you Dr. Dwayne Goldman. When I talk about Dr. Dwayne Goldman, it goes back years where I was a student at UAPB and he was doing outreach and talking to students about careers with Monsanto. I won't tell how many years ago that's been, but I've got 23 years in with the service of USDA, so I'm gonna stop right there. But Dr. Dwayne Goldman is originally from Jefferson County, a small family farm. He rose through his tenure as the younger sibling to the University of Arkansas at Fayetteville, where he received his education, and on to Iowa, where he received his PhD, University of Iowa. But Dr. Wayne Goldman also has held various positions in his career for technology development. Dr. Wayne Goldman, throughout his education and career, he has worked on diversity initiatives and maintained working relationships with several land-grant universities. When I think about Dr. Wayne Goldman, I think about how he has served on numerous boards. You know, when I think about Dr. Dwayne Goldman, I think about March 1st, 2021, where at that appointed time, he was announced as the inaugural senior advisor for racial justice and equity at USDA, where he serves as a key advisor to the Secretary of Agriculture. In the presidential appointment, Dr. Goldman provides counsel on a broad range of advisories to different issues that we all face in the ag community. Equity, equality. When you think of equity and equality, you think about our morning speaker, Dr. Dwayne Goldman.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Pierce. Good morning. I kind of want to meet that guy. Let me express some extreme gratitude for being here. I think since I've been in this position, it's my first time back live. I think I did have the pleasure of speaking to your audience a couple of times virtually, talking about different things, and I've always enjoyed a special relationship with Arkansas Land Community Development Corporation. My uncle was one of the founding members here, so I used to remember him talking about. Didn't really know what he was, what he was talking about. You know, when you're a little country boy growing up in the country, hell, Wrigley could have been New York City. And Fargo could have easily been New Jersey. It was just out of my realm of possibility. But later on in my professional career, when I had the opportunity to come over here, talk to some of your farmers and learn about your history, it all started to resonate. I've got about 30 minutes, and I have several experiences. I still farm in Jefferson County. I grow corn, rice, and soybeans. We had to scale back one because I'm not around as much. But I still farm, and on a good day, that's where I am. That's my special spot. But I understand the importance of the position that I'm in. So what I thought I would do, maybe for those of you who I haven't had the pleasure of meeting, might be to share a little bit about me. I know it's not about me, but I want you to be comfortable with what I'm about to say about equity. And I want you to be comfortable with me being qualified to talk to you about equity and some of the priorities of the administration. So what you won't see in my bio was that I was 10 of 11 kids. Started out in agriculture at the mature age of 5, when I acted a fool and convinced my mom and dad that I didn't have to stay home with mama and my baby sister, that I could chop cotton with the big boys. And after 2 or 3 days of kicking and screaming, I convinced them, and they believed me. But Daddy took a hoe, cut the handle off, and my career in agriculture started. Now, that one I wanted to pull back because after, a couple of hours, yeah, y'all know where I'm going, right? It's June, it's in Southeast Arkansas. You got a big breakfast and you're out there and everything is going well, right? That sun continues to rise, and about 10, 11 o'clock, that breakfast is starting to wear off. And the little perspiration that's been developing for, an hour or two turns to a full running sweat coming down your forehead. And you're like, you know what? I get back to the house this time. I think I can take the teasing. But I was 4 hours late and my career in agriculture had started, okay? So by the time I got out of high school,
I had decided that I wanted to farm. That's what I wanted to do. So I go to the university, majored in agronomy, minor in ag business. And started, I spent a summer as an extension agent intern, actually in Jefferson County. And there I learned the importance of having an advanced degree. And I started thinking about grad school. I went on and got a master's in soybean breeding and got turned on by research, go to Iowa State, get a PhD, and thinking I'm gonna be a professor. But I started working in the chemical and seed industry. Worked for American Cyanamid for a few years, then joined Monsanto. And I spent 25 years doing a whole lot of different things with that company. Somewhere in the middle of that, I started farming on my own. And this is where I'm getting to the part that probably puts me in position to be talking about equity in front of you. But I started farming on my own. And I'm an agronomist, okay? And big part of my career, when we were talking about random soybeans, I think I shared some of the results of those demonstrations over here at ALFDC back. We're talking about the demonstrations that we've been doing, and there was some controversy around random soybeans. And I'll say it, there was some controversy in the Black farming community in particular, because of the high cost of the seed and the impact that had on the total operation. And it wasn't until we partnered with UAPB to do some demonstrations on specifically some Black farms that we were able to cut to the bottom of it, figure out that those benefits were attainable. Didn't matter what color you were, didn't matter about the size, but until we did that, we were not able to convince small farmers, Black farmers, other small farmers that this technology was working. We did that, and it signaled something to me, and that was that it's very important to reach people where they are. And I'll come back to that in a second, okay? But I started farming, and in my farm, I was struggling. Not so much with the agronomic, but we had 2 or 3 years of low prices and drought. And I started struggling with the sustainability of my farm and brought some things to light. And for the first time in my career, even though I was familiar with some of the missed opportunities of my father, for the first time in my career, I felt like I was discriminated against. And it was very humbling. And I didn't take it laying down. But I learned a lot. I learned the importance of looking at all sides of the issue. I learned the importance of unintended consequences. I learned the importance of the cumulative nature of discrimination, particularly in agriculture. When, in a perfect world, when things work right, we get to build on the successes of prior generations. But in an imperfect world, when discrimination and racism rears its ugly head, we have to figure out a way to atone for the missed opportunities of prior generations. And that's a distinct difference. So I learned that. And in my learning, I remember having some moments where I was just trying to fix this for me. And I remember praying about it. And I remember something being revealed to me that, yeah, we're going to fix this, but we're not just going to fix it for you. We have to fix this on a larger platform. And I'm not saying that, yeah, my name is not Moses. I do have a brother named Moses. or you know, it is a biblical, I'm not saying that. But when I tell you that I'm serious about equity, justice, and making this thing able to reach people where they are, I'm pretty serious about that. Now, but I do have a question before I get into this, and it may not be related, but it is. It's Miss Cunningham, is that right? And you said 300 acres. Where is that farm located? The 1890. Where is that farm located?
Near Wrightsville. But in the old days, my grandmother owned 500 acres of land. And when her husband died, this Black woman ran that 500-acre farm. She had 6 children. Her youngest child was 7. She lost no land. She sold no land. And she had a grocery store, right? She had a gym, farm things you have.
Understood. Thank you. Thanks for the history. And I wasn't sure, I honestly wasn't sure. I'm familiar with Wrightsville, Pulaski County. I'm from Jefferson County. But I wanted to know that because can you imagine the impact that farm and that gin had on that community in that area? Because I grew up in a community like that where we had people that were able to persist and contribute to the diversity of American agriculture. So when we start talking about equity, I know we're focused on the present and the future, but we have to at least glance back in the past and figure out how do we make up for those things, those missed opportunities in the past as we look to the future to try and do that. And I work with the department that is working towards achieving just that. So thank you, Ms. Cunningham. Let me talk about, I've been at USDA now for about a year and a half, March 1, 2021. And I've seen a lot of things happen, but I want to share with you my thought pattern in going into the department. Now, I look out across the audience and I see a lot of people that I'm familiar with. State Conservation is Mike Sullivan, former State Conservation is Calvin Trice. Regional Conservation is Brother Tillman, DC. FSA people, NRCS, District Conservation is Jameson Murray, up and coming, rising star. But I think about where we were in March of 2021, okay? I don't need to remind you much of the turbulence of 2020 when COVID pretty much shut us down, but we had a presidential election and we had a change in priorities. When Joe Biden came in, he said that there's a few things here that we want to pay particular attention to. Things like climate response, equity. He signaled those things, and on day one, he signed an executive order, EO 13985, that mandated that all of his cabinet level appointees, all 13 of them, put together a specific plan to do better along equity. And one of those was Secretary Vilsack. And he decided that he wanted someone in his administration that would go to bed and wake up thinking about equity in a meaningful way. And you're looking at that person. But I don't work alone, okay? So when we're real successful, yeah, I'll take some of that credit. When we fail, I don't work alone. And when we are successful, I still don't work alone because I now understand up close and personally the importance of being able to rely on my colleagues across USDA. It's about 100,000 of us, from the field offices up to DC. But to rely on them to deliver on these things around equity. I thought I would share with you how we accomplished that. I thought I would also share with you how equity fits into 3 or 4 other priorities of this administration that will impact the work that happens here in Fargo and radiates across the state of Arkansas. So let me talk about them just by name. So earlier this morning, we were talking about food distribution systems with you, Mr. Fonzini, and the things that are important. And this administration has made a major investment in food distribution systems. So you'll hear us talking more about urban agriculture and local and regional food systems that address things like food deserts, cuts down the number of miles on fruits and vegetables so that more people will have more easy and affordable access to them. And as the Secretary and the President have described, building a food system from the bottom up and the middle out that allows our agricultural communities to circulate revenue a few more times in that community and do more good things. So that's our food system. I already mentioned climate and the fact that, yes, we were talking this morning, Mr. Peter, and Ms. McManus, we were talking about the trends that we see today. It's a fact, people. When we would get a year like 2022, we used to say, man, that's going to be an outlier. And there are a couple of years that those of you who have been farming, when I say 1980, you go, woo, it was dry and hot that year, or 2012. 2022 was a little different, but I would submit to you to start thinking about 2022 as the new norm. The fact that we have to figure out how to allow the environment to mitigate itself a little bit on climate change, but also how we have to adjust our practices to make sure that we can remain as productive in a world, in a climate that's a little hotter, a little drier, with a few more temperature extremes in it. And we made some major investments, 2.8 million investments in climate smart ag practices, another 700 million, maybe close to $1 billion, that will announce another set of smaller investments or investments with smaller groups with more local reach that can help us to build a more resilient agricultural system that's more responsive to this environment we work in. DEIA, diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility. It was interesting, Sophia, when you were talking about me meeting you guys on UAPB's campus. And at Monsanto back in the 90s, I developed pretty close relationships with a lot of the 1890 universities. And in fact, Dr. Cornelius, I still call him one of my own because he was an intern with me. And I told him, man, you got to go to grad school because he was bright and young and capable. And I was actually looking forward to working for him one day. So I hate he's not here, but I still consider him one of mine. And I got several of them out there, just like Mr. Murray, an up and coming star at USDA and RCS. And I remember him scaring the heck out of me when a little boy trying to learn how to drive a tractor on the farm. But anyway, yeah. So yeah, DEIA, making sure that we invest in the next generation of talent to make sure that agriculture that our composition of employees at USDA is reflective of the diverse agricultural system that we're bound to support. And that's an ongoing goal. The final one is equity. And that's the one, again, I get it, it falls squarely on my shoulders. I don't take it lightly. But we have kind of arranged the department around a few things that we know now we have to be successful on to deliver on equity. The Department of the Office of Civil Rights has to be a better functioning safeguard that can make some corrections when we don't quite get it right. And we understand that. We have an Office of Tribal Relations that acknowledges the special and sovereign relationship with the Native American agricultural community. And we have to be respectful of that. But within that framework, there are 3 pillars that we work on. I already talked about DEIA. We have a unique and special effort looking at that and making sure that internally that our people are trained and sensitive to being responsive to diverse opinions, whether that be racial, gender, ethnic diversity that you can see, or whether that be religious, other areas of diversity that you may have to talk to someone to actually figure out. But all of those things are important when we try and serve a diverse agricultural system. We have programmatic equity issues, meaning that we need to look at our programs, not just an outreach standpoint that talks about who we talk to, but from a results standpoint to look at those key factors that give us a measure of how effective we are at distributing these resources equitably across our customer base. The final piece is one that you might have heard me talking about in the past. It's an equity commission. And the Equity Commission is a group of external experts that provide actionable recommendations to the secretary and to the department on those things that we need to do to make sure that we are making progress towards equity. They have met 3 times. The last time they actually met in person on the campus of UAPB in September. And they formulated and are finalizing their first set of recommendations that will be presented to the secretary. The department is working very closely with them to make sure that these things are actionable. Let me, that's our equity effort. Again, goes across the department, through our mission areas, through our agencies, has to have accountability in it, has to have the ability to look at what we've done in the past and make constant improvements so that we can continue to make progress. Let me share with you a couple of things, because now I'm going to put my farmer hat on, okay? And I'm going to say, yeah, Dwayne, that's all good. That's all the great stuff you're doing or what you're trying to do. That's important, but I've gotten pulled to the corner and people ask me, what are you doing for me now? I hear a lot about listening sessions and stuff. Dwayne, I know you're not that slow. You know some of the messed up stuff the USDA is doing. What are you gonna do about that? And it's pretty humbling to have those kind of conversations. It's real humbling when you in foreign territory, and everybody in the room is bigger than you. And you talk about not being able to run, yeah. But we have had some pretty candid discussions with folks. And let me share with you a couple of important pieces of legislation that have really propelled us along the way. So I started March 1, March 11th, Congress signed the American Rescue Plan Act. And the American Rescue Plan covered a large number of things, but there were two sections in there in particular that I want to point out. Section 1005, we call the debt relief portion of it. Section 1005 told USDA to pay the debts for social disadvantaged farmers, defined then primarily as farmers of color. I'm gonna make this plain, okay? That was section 1005, and we immediately began implementing that important legislation because we knew the importance of it in allowing us to kind of draw a line in the sand, pay some people that have been wrong, and then move forward. Section 1006 was a more integrated, more robust plan that really had about 5 key components in it that said, USDA, not only will you pay debt, you will also think seriously about, and here's some resources to deal with some chronic problems of this department. And we want you to use these resources to prevent having a relapse back to a period where you discriminate against certain folks. There were about 5 sections in there. One was dealing with figuring out ways to increase access to capital and land and do it in a meaningful way. There was one in there that said, you will help train the next generation of agricultural talent. You will partner with minority serving institutions, Black, Native American, Latino, other minority serving institutions. You will partner with those institutions to help train the next generation of agricultural talent. There was some funds put in there for that actually funds the equity. Okay, there were some funds put in there to help with infrastructure and other problems in those minority serving institutions. And then there was a section in there that said you will also take these funds and figure out how to compensate people financially for discrimination that they have suffered. And we began immediately implementing those as well. Well, shortly after we got into it, the payments in 1005 were challenged. The payments in the American Rescue Plan Act were challenged. So how many farmers in this? By show of hands. How many of you got a letter from the Farm Service Agency saying that you were going to get some relief? Okay. And you probably got 2 letters. One that said, yep, we have your Form AD 2047 on file. You identified as a member of the group that's going to get this relief. You got another letter that was a lot more personal that said, this is the amount of relief you're going to get. Okay. I see you shaking your head, but typically that's the way it went. That's the way it went. And I need to tell you that when that was challenged, about 2, maybe 3 months in, we were hit with a restraining order and an injunction that said that, okay, this is going to litigation. USDA, you cannot make these payments. You can continue to collect information, but you cannot make these payments until this litigation is solved. And it was disappointing, but it was litigation. So we immediately had to stop. And as the litigation went on, there were more of us that realized a few things. One, this thing could go either way because it's litigation, okay? 2, this thing could take a while because it's litigation. Now, when you look at the data that we had inside the department, it says that, yeah, there's some pretty compelling information that says that this is an approach that should be done, an approach that could work, okay? And we were excited about defending the constitutionality of doing this and the need to do that. But it's going to litigation, okay? And in July, August of this year, folks start figuring out maybe, is there a better way to do this, okay? And the other thought that was bearing down on this is that if this litigation goes on 3 or 4 years, and you lose some of the people that you're trying to protect, if you win and you've lost some of the people that you're trying to protect, have you really won? In farming, we talk about seasons. A calf is born, a seed is planted, that calf goes to market, that crop is harvested, and we do that repeatedly. And we trust and we tend and we husband. But every season that you don't have operating capital, you don't have expense, every season your mere existence becomes more and more perilous. And we understand that. So when the Inflation Reduction Act said that, okay, not only do we have a problem with race, there are other metrics that need to be considered when we want to keep our farmers farming and compensate those people who have been less able to participate in the mainstream of agriculture. And so the Inflation Reduction Act said, okay, we're going to do a couple of things. One, we're going to, and I want y'all to listen carefully, we're going to redefine the people that receive these benefits. So it's not about farmers of color now. The emphasis needs to be on distressed borrowers, okay? And so when we made that shift, it said that USDA will compensate distressed borrowers for loans that were delinquent, 60 days or more past due as of September 30th. And because those distressed borrowers were probably the ones that were also less likely to be able to put together cash flow operations, we also decided to make the next installment due. And so those payments went out. The secretary announced it last Tuesday, the 18th, and then we were able to talk about it after he made his announcement. So some of you, if you had loans that were 60 days or more past due as of September 30th, FSA directly guaranteed loans, your FSA loans would have been credited and brought current, okay? 800 million has gone out the door, okay? You would have gotten notices. The other thing I need to tell you, and I want to be as transparent as I can, is that in the negotiations of the Inflation Reduction Act, the provisions that made those payments non-taxable was taken out. So those will be considered taxable income. But we've also contracted with 2 organizations. One is Utah State University. And before you say, Utah State, what the hell? Let me tell you that Utah State has a proven history of being able to provide very sage tax advice, okay? And across USDA. But we've also partnered with the Southern Risk Management Education Center, located here in Arkansas. And they have strong relationships across the 1890 land grant community. Our goal is to provide proactive tax advice for those people that have received those benefits to make sure that we can follow the Secretary's mandate of let's keep farmers farming. Let's take people from simply surviving from one season to the next. We need to have more people thriving because our food systems, our agricultural systems require us to do that. And so as we talk about the differences in the American Rescue Plan and the Inflation Reduction Act, those are some critical differences. The other thing I wanted to point out is that when the Inflation Reduction Act was actually penned, it did 2 things. It said for that section 1005, we are going to repeal that section, okay? So that $4 billion that was over there is no longer there. We're gonna repeal it, we're gonna repurpose those funds. They also made some modifications to the next section. And if you look at the American Rescue Plan in the original language, it gave the secretary some latitude as to how much you wanted to put into those categories I talked about earlier. Those categories stayed. And so now they stayed, but they pinned down the amount of resources that would be invested in each of those categories. The final thing I'll say before I take a few questions, if that's okay, is in that last portion of the Inflation Reduction Act, section 22007E. That's the section that has $2.2 billion to compensate farmers for discrimination in farm loan programs, okay? So $3.1 billion do the debt payments for distressed borrowers, 2.2 to deal with providing financial compensation for prior discrimination. And you might say, wait a minute, this sounds eerily familiar. And it sounds like another fiasco that maybe ain't gonna work. Need I say Pickford or Keepsiegel or Love or Garcia? So what we're saying is, yes, we understand the shortcomings of those prior class action settlements. While they might have had the right intent, they were poorly executed. I understand that. So what we're saying this time is that we want input and information from the public, because the bill itself, the act itself, requires USDA to create an entity or entities that can do this and create a fair, efficient system that can quickly compensate people so that we can move forward. On October the 14th, we announced a 30-day request for information where people can log on and provide written information as to how we can do this. Yesterday, I participated in the second of 3 listening sessions where we're having public forums where we are collecting information on how we can do that. Our goal is to take this public information and develop this process, identify some entities that can do this fair, efficient, consistent across the US. And so when you look at, I mean, we're in Arkansas now, we're in the southeastern region. When you look at some of the prevailing conditions, some of the things that led to discrimination in the southeast, if I go up north to the Dakotas and look at some of the atrocities that's been suffered by our Native American farmers, the issues are a little different. The understanding of the details behind how those, how that discrimination manifested itself is probably going to be a little different. While it's not my decision singly, I think it's hard for me to envision a single entity that would have the sophistication and the reach and the understanding to do this. So I think we're looking at multiple entities. Until I see otherwise, I'm going to continue to advocate for that, but we're open to this. So you'll see that process rolled out. Let me stop here and just ask if anybody might have any questions on anything I've said, or maybe on something I didn't say. Yes, ma'am. I'm scared because I saw you shaking your head when I asked a question earlier. Go ahead. Yes, ma'am.
About the people that delinquent loans and how that should have been paid. Did we borrow money, but we paid it back the year thereafter? And but we did get letters saying that we should have gotten that back. You know, something about the.
So great. And is this related to the Inflation Reduction Act, the latest one? So let me explain to you, and I should have said this, thank you. This has to be done in stages. Okay, again, FSA, direct and guaranteed loans. The simplest of those are direct loans where it's a direct relationship between FSA and you as the borrower. We have all the information we need. When we pay that debt off, we pay it current, then you have the ability to operate, to go back and do additional loan service and this kind of thing, right? That was the first step. In addition to that, and that was about 600 million. And then there was another step of people that had liquidated, they had debt that was out there, but there was nothing other than the debt, and so we paid those. And then we get into the next step or two. We get into cases where there's delinquent debt, but there's also maybe a guaranteed lender that has a lien on some of the equipment or has collateral. It may have started some kind of foreclosure or bankruptcy proceeding. In those cases, we're going to have a one-on-one conversation. Remember, I shared with you that our goal is to keep farmers farming, right? And so if I pay your FSA debt only to release you to the IRS, and you're still not able to operate, we fail. We understand that. And so those cases that are more complicated, those letters you got are likely related to the fact that those cases is gonna require someone from FSA, and we have a team that's developing, but someone from FSA is gonna have to sit down with you and say, what's the situation here? So when we do this, how do we keep you farming? How do we satisfy, you know, the third-party lender requirements? How do we do those things to keep you farming? And those will take a little longer. We'll be working on that over the next, 30, 60, 90 days. Thank you.
Dr. Coleman, that's the question I have. In cases where you have farmers who are economically distressed farming operations, they struggle to stay in business. They are not delinquent, but they had to restructure their debt, basically deferred debt. So they got a debt deferral, but they were delinquent just like the other borrowers. So they went in and restructured that debt. They deferred that debt, or they structured it over a period of 7 years. It may have been through an emergency law or just through the typical basis of the way you do business. Now, those individuals are equally as distressed as those who are a year or 2 years delinquent, and they get that debt taken out. But these individuals do not get their debts taken out. Or it may be as a result of a situation where they were economically distressed, not able to pay the debt, and all of their program payments were taken, as you say, deferred toward their payment, because they were coming to be in market support, the fast payments.
Going against the back. Yep.
So they took those dollars off. That was $100,000, $200,000. So they didn't get that as far as any revenue coming in. And then they still it enabled them to restructure their debt. So that's a $400,000 or $500,000 situation right there.
Yep.
But I guess my point is that you have the same situation of would have been that's equally as distressed as the one that made no payment at all.
And that's where the equity has to come in, okay? And let me share with you a couple of other categories that I hear my colleagues at FSA, the leadership team, I hear us talking about. What about people that were distressed but got some kind of relief from a EIDL? Right. How do you do that? What about people that have had to the PP, or people that have had to refinance a number of times? And what I hear us talking about are those situations, those conditions that also signal a point of distress. Yeah. We're gonna have to deal with that. And so when you look at it, the first wave, the 800 million, that's already been described. There's another 300 or so million that will capture a lot of those cases where we got to lean in. And if you add it up, it comes up to about $2 billion, which leaves $1.1 billion to deal with those cases that you're talking about, where people have other forms of distress that signals that they have not been able to fully participate. Right. And I see us opening up and looking at ways to do that, as well as looking at those people who are right there on the brink of success. They have more and more difficulty financing. They may have to push off or refinance debt. So we're looking at the number of times a person has had to refinance, the amount, all those things. I see us developing programs to deal with those different levels of distress. Because again, our goal in investing that section 22006 is to make sure that we have more people able to put together more long-range plans that cash flow, hopefully address some of the reasons, whether they be technical, financial, or otherwise, but to address some of the reasons and let the solution to those reasons be reflected in the new loans that will be made over the coming years. It's a process. Yes, ma'am. It's been phone.
This is where you got Ms. Bone and you have Also, Ms. Bryant. So you got B and B there.
Who was first?
I think Ms. Ball, Ms. Ball.
Okay, okay.
I'm trying to understand. So you telling me I restructured my loan. And what I wanted to try to understand, every time I restructured my loan, they came after me and said, well, you own this. They attached that to my loan. So what has happened with me is I went into farming, but still love it. But it appears that if I can't get some and and you're not going to take my home because I had to restructure my debt several times. I had a loss with the insurance, insurance, and what happened was we had a total loss. So I got like $9,000 to take care of that total loss. So that didn't even make my yearly to make me feel a little bit better that we're not going to lose everything because I started this firm. And my husband is back. And every time because of our restructuring debt. So many times.
Thank you, Ms. Bowman.
Yes, sir.
What I'm pointing out, and I'm taking notes, and I want you to understand that we're doing these kinds of sessions across the country, trying to understand the details behind how people continue to get in distress and address those problems so that they cease being problems. So, and I know it might sound, it's very personal to you, but what I heard was additional collateral requirements, the signature requirements, whether or not who has to obligate what for the farm, and those are problems. Okay, I will signal to you that those are problems. In a lot of cases, they may take someone with the broader exposure, leaning in, saying, "Okay, this is an outlier for this loan that's not applied to other loans in the same office, and we need to fix that." That's part of the equity. The other piece is, as we look into other indicators of distress, I think we've got to be more mindful. And there's I know Administrator Duchino well, and he and I have had a lot of conversations about the kinds of indicators across all the communities we're trying to serve that should be used as signals of distress. And I see us being able to address those more completely now. But I have to tell you that those are going to come a little later on because those are not one-on-one transactions.
So the equipment loan, I thought would be the collateral. But it demands that you have to have 150%. So the equipment is not, I don't understand the 150%. If you get all the stuff, you it appreciates. And I'm assuming appreciates as well. But 150% requirement, is that something you guys can address?
Yes. Let me qualify that, because I don't want you to think that Dwayne Goldman is going to go back to DC and fix that tomorrow. Okay, but Ms. Bone, I can assure you that I've heard that. Well, let me share with you that I served on the advisory committee for minority farmers 3 terms prior, and I won the USDA, and that issue consistently came up. Okay, and so I think we do have to look at collateral requirements and what are those minimum requirements that are fair and equitable across that allows people to operate within their norms, but also protect the government's interest in providing those loans. And I think there are some improvements to be made. I will communicate our progress on that with you, Dr. King.
That's good.
It's a work in progress, and I'll count on you and your network to get that out.
Let me, I want to take one other question for Dr. Goldman. Miss Bryant, she had her hand up, and we're gonna have to end the speaker section to go to our panel. And I mean, I really love this. This is definitely a interactive session. This is what we look for, that interaction and real discussion. But Ms. Bryant, you had a question, and we're gonna go.
Constructed and did all those things to keep our land, but it didn't work. And we ended up having to, well, my husband was very proud man. They was gonna take the land and sell it. So what he did, he sold it instead and paid off the bill. But that still was based on starting from USDA. It started at USDA. And I don't go through all the other stuff that led up to getting a loan at the bank and then put the reconstruction and all that.
So if I can summarize what I'm saying, Inflation Reduction Act, 2 critical pieces, Ms. Bryant. One is 22006 that relieves debt for distressed borrowers to keep farmers farming and to allow them to thrive in their operation, okay? There's also 2.2 billion in section 22007. And I should have said it before, I don't want anybody to be surprised. The maximum, the cap in that section is 500,000. But you will be given the opportunity, once these entities are identified and the rules are shared with the public, you will be given the opportunity to participate, and I keep saying this, every chance I get, to participate in a fair, efficient process that allows you to state your case as to the financial harm suffered by you by being discriminated against in farm lending program. So let me stop with that. I thank you all for the opportunity. I'll be around most of the morning. Not trying to dip and hide, but I'll be around most of the morning. I think I got a pretty hard stop right after lunch, but I'll be around. So thanks for the opportunity. Always good to be back. First time being back as a government employee. But thanks for the opportunity and appreciate your attention.
One express our appreciation, Dr. Goldman. You know, I hope I made the statement when I talked about the Rottweiler and the pit bull, that the gate was unlocked, that things were the same. I know I talked about the fence and everything, but the problem with the gate was unlocked, so things were the same as it was. Really appreciate Dr. Goldman. There's a lot in the American Recovery Act and the Inflation Reduction Act, you know, those amendments that took place. And those individuals, if you know people who are landowners, who are farmers, you're here, and people who have not gotten a letter, you know, they need to see somebody or talk to somebody, either at FSA, or they can give us a call, or you can call Dr. Goldman. He's normally a pretty personal individual. But I mean, I shouldn't just say that. Okay, anyway, his direct number is 202-997. 2100.
And if you're checking me, it's over there on the charger right now. So he didn't answer.
It's over there on the chart, okay? Over the years.
No.
So if you,
It's on online.
a minute,
I got it. For you.
you're disturbing that. Oh, okay. If you, and I know you're probably telling somebody that's not here that they need to be here, but you're right. You're right. But tell them to come on anyway. But his number again, 202-997-2100. I know he will take your call, and we do want to make sure this is directly linked to equity, now, thing, equity and equality, and the legacy itself. And a lot of people have lost what they had perceived to be what they wanted to be, their equity position in life with their farms and with their land ownership. So there are various phases. We're gonna move ahead now. I'm gonna turn this over to my cohort and the vice president of the organization here with policy planning, Mr. J.D. Davis, and he'll bring forth the others as we continue with the program agenda. Mr. Davis. And I know first thing you'll probably say is capital, long-winded again.
Good morning again. You know, I really enjoy working here. Some people say I don't work, but I enjoy being here. I had a conversation with Dr. King this morning. He says that I'm to facilitate this workshop, and he said I got 2 hours. And he said you can allocate 20 minutes to each presenter. Well, that doesn't add up to 2 hours. But I looked at what's in front of it and recognized that Dr. King and Dr. Goldman was on in front. That's going to take up at least 20 minutes over. But they're good. I'm going to ask the panel to come forward, please. And looking at the audience, I'm looking for all the young people. And I don't see very many. That sort of says something, you know. Here I am, got hearing aids and can't hear, got glasses and can't see. But we're here to represent the people. One of the problems with it that we, the government, and everybody else has to try to work with the community is outreach. You know, we have a number of programs where we go and serve beginning farmers, urban farmers, disadvantaged people, you know, air property people, but I don't see them. I don't know what that means. You know, maybe we really aren't getting the message out that we help you, but we want you to be here to hear these good things. Now, this panel, the fourth person will be here by virtual. I want to make sure that you pay attention and get things out of it. We're going to try to keep it to about 20 minutes per person, about 5 minutes questions, and then at the end, any remaining questions. So to get you ready, to make sure that you're paying attention, to make sure you're focused and ready to ask questions, I just want to, you know, see where you stand, how alert you are. So I'm going to ask you to do me a favor. I'm going to say a word. I want you to spell the word, spell the word, spell the word, and then I'll ask you a question. I just want to see where your mind is. I've done this a number of times to some of you. Let's see how it works. The first word is stop. I spell it. Faster, please. What do you do when you get to a green light? All right. Now, you know, really want to raise your level of awareness so you can be alert and pay attention and ask questions. So now you see how it goes. I got one more exercise, then I'm going to sit down and let panel do its thing. This time the word is folk, like kinfolk, but singular. Spell it. Come on. It's called the white of an egg.
Right.
Third. Our first panelist is Mike Sullivan. Mike is the state conservation. I mean that he is head of NRCS, National Resource Conservation Agency and Services in Arkansas. Mike also going to talk about this great program that the administration announced, the Reduction Act, and all those things. He's going to talk about all the things that, I'll tell you what he's going to talk about, that NRCS does, and all this money that's out there, you know, just for you, for the taking. So we can understand that, understand how to get it, and understand how to solve a problem. One other thing, I got to take a shot at Dr. King. He's probably hiding now. You know, the thing of the conference is what the legacy of equity and equality or something like that. He had addressed that. When he said that theme, I said, Dr. King, what do you mean legacy of equity and equality? Yeah, and we're talking about, you know, these kind of people. Yeah, ain't no legacy there. Okay? But anyway, you'll have to explain that, okay?
Good morning. You can be up just right. He's got me kind of wondering what's going on here. And I think he's kind of a trickster or something. Say what you want, right? Also thinking about pit bulls and Dobermans being fenced in. It reminded me of an experience I had on the job one time. I was working out in Arizona up on the Navajo Nation. And one of my coworkers and I went out for a job, and we were up around Window Rock, out running around, and all of a sudden we saw two Dobermans, and they didn't like the look of us, and we didn't like the look of them, and there was no fence, and they started charging at us and charging hard, and we sped up as fast as we could, and fortunately they were on chains, and we were able to just get out of harm's way. But afterward, my cohort, he was really panting and struggling. I thought he was going to break down, and I wasn't having any trouble at all. And he asked me why I wasn't so concerned, and I said, "Well, I know I'm faster than you are." You know, we just heard from Dr. Goldman, and I don't know about you, but I feel really proud that we have somebody with the farming background and experience, academic training and knowledge of Arkansas and how he's worked here in Arkansas with model demonstration farms and everything else, and now taking that nationally, working in DC with a voice of reason. So I just asked, let's give him another round of applause. And yeah, that title with the legacy of equity. What does that mean?
Ask Dr. King.
Well, I'm going to talk about it a little bit from my perspective and our perspective in NRCS, and to look where we are today and into the future. I think it does help to look a little bit into the past and see where we've been, catch up to where we are today, and then talk a little bit about where we're headed with opportunities. And before I get there, I think we certainly wouldn't be where we are at all without the dedicated staff that we have at NRCS. So if you're with NRCS, would you please raise your hand? So quite a few NRCS. And if you look at them kind of the continuum on the age, like Dr. Goldman was saying, we've got some new recruits and some bright rising stars. We've got some folks that have been in field offices for a number of years. We've got some state leaders, and we're fortunate to have some national leadership here as well. I think over the last 3+ decades, we have established somewhat of a legacy with our partnership with ALCDC and the Natural Resources Conservation Service. We've worked really hard to accelerate services to historically underserved producers. And that commitment has come from the foundation we built in the past to where we are today that really provides us great opportunities moving forward in the future. I'm aware that in the past, some producers did not receive our services. And when I think about services, if you're not really familiar with NRCS, that starts with technical assistance, information on soils or information on water use, or information on conservation practices that go into a conservation plan. All these services are free. All you got to do is ask for them. But not everybody got those services in the past. And then in more recent years, we've added programs that have money to help implement those conservation practices. And money is competitive. Not everybody gets funded. And so that service really depends on how your project scores, how it ranks. And so those two things kind of go together for how we work with individual producers. And I think we've had a strategic approach over the last 3 decades, gradually improving our information and assistance so that there is more technical assistance and more money available to historically underserved producers, minority producers, veterans, beginning farmers and ranchers, so that we're getting more conservation on the ground and we're getting a reasonable amount of the funding to those producers as well. Again, we have a long history working together with ALCDC. That started with an alternative crop program, certainly predates me. Dr. Ting, you were around, but I've heard about it. And it started with the technical assistance piece, making sure people had the information they need so they could implement those practices. I think those efforts were continued and expanded upon with my predecessor, Calvin Trice. He was here a little bit, but during his tenure as state conservationist, he kept those things moving. And then over the last decade or more, things have been alive and well and growing with more collaboration and more trust than we've ever had before. Sometimes we have difficulty reaching out to individual producers, and that's why it's really helpful to have partners like ALCDC to help us to do those things. Also been helpful to have the flexibility at the state level where we can make decisions, James, based on our feedback from local work groups and state technical committees, so that we can ensure that historically underserved producers get their fair share of the program money. So we followed these efforts with a larger effort with more focus on historically underserved producers called Strike Force. It was something for a number of years we talked about. Hopefully that's a common word for many of you. Back in 2010, Arkansas was one of the first states, along with Georgia and Mississippi, to pilot this. And eventually it was expanded to more than 20 states across the country. We worked together with ALCDC and other partners to help change the culture about how we go about providing assistance. In other words, instead of waiting for people to come into the office, we started reaching out a little more proactively to get that information out there. With assistance from ALCDC, we've reached producers we never would have reached before. And as Dr. Goldman said earlier, we learned to meet people where they are and provide a little bit of extra intensive care when needed so that they could get the assistance that they were eligible for and deserved. And in fact, from 2010 to 2015, we increased our funding for historically underserved producers by a factor of 10. So in those 5 years, we had 10 times the money each year going to historically underserved producers. And then each year after that, we found ways to at least maintain that level or increase it some every year. And that was regardless of whether we got special funding from the national office or not. We did it because it was the right thing to do. So that's kind of a little bit on the past. Where are we today? I think most of our agricultural producers that we work with understand what conservation is and what it means to use your natural resources wisely. And that it makes sense to incorporate conservation into your operational portfolio. And when we're doing that, things that we're seeing positive results on is we're protecting the natural resources. We're saving the soil, we're reducing water use, we're protecting wildlife, improving water quality. And yes, even helping with greenhouse gases and reducing those emissions. We want to help every single producer that is interested in having assistance. I think I've heard our chief talk, we used to say something like every acre counts. And now what I've heard him say more recently is all land and all people, or something along those lines. And we want to make sure that whether you have an acre or less, or whether you have 5,000 acres, if you need assistance from us, we're going to find a way to provide that to you. And then some people think of conservation as just the big stuff. And here in Arkansas, yeah, we have problems with groundwater decline, and there's some expensive practices like irrigation storage reservoirs, things like that that are really big and major conservation practices. But sometimes doing the small stuff is really important to that particular producer. It might be a soil test, or it might be dealing with pest management, or it might be getting the right holes in your poly pipe so you get the right amount of water onto the fields. Those are all things that we consider conservation as well. And your practices can be customized to meet your need. So also where we are today, continuing with our partnership with ALCDC. Again, that's been a great partnership. I know of at least several different agreements where we're working together for mutual benefits in addressing strategic issues related to conservation. A few examples, the Youth Enterprise and Careers in Agriculture program. That's been a long-standing effort here from ALCDC. I wasn't here yesterday, but I'm sure like other years, there's been great participation, great awareness from our youth on opportunities in agriculture. Another issue that's been on a hot topic for a number of years is dealing with air property issues and problems. We've worked with ALCDC to help get the word out because this is a barrier to participating in our programs. And they've been helpful to work with producers to get some of these issues resolved so producers can become eligible and participate in our programs. And then the third area we've worked with agreements on is technical assistance for micro-urban farms for minority and underserved producers. And the urban area is a growing area for us. We've seen quite a bit of interest here. Interesting, even this morning, Ms. Bell I met, and I think she's worked through ALCDC here, but now she's being funded for doing some outreach work of our own. So the work here at ALCDC continues to build and grow within the state and beyond the state. And then finally, just in terms of status for where we are today, just a report on some of our results from this last year from our programs. Our base working lands program, the Environmental Quality Incentives Program, is one that many producers are interested in. We have huge demand for it. Last year, we had a total of about $57 million to write contracts to provide assistance through that program. With that money, we were able to develop around 1,500 contracts, and 1,000 of those contracts were historically underserved producers. And 37 million of the 57 million went to either minority, veteran, beginning farmer, rancher, or limited resource producers. So 2/3 of that program, in terms of either number of contracts or money, went to historically underserved producers. I think that's a threshold we've not seen before, and we continue to see great things there. We have another working lands program called the Conservation Stewardship Program, where if you want to achieve even higher levels, you can participate. And last year in that program, we had $30 million in new contracts, and we were able to increase historically underserved participation to around 30% in that program. So again, more than what we had done in the past, and so we're continuing to make progress there. We also have a wetland reserve easement program, and this is if you have marginal croplands that are wet, maybe were originally wetlands and ought to go back to wetlands. We have a program to allow for that. For the first time ever, we had a set-aside program for historically underserved producers. And of the 22 applicants that were selected for funding, 8 of those were historically underserved producers. So again, progress with the program there. And then we also have some special initiatives or programs. There's one called the Mississippi River Basin Initiative. There's another one called a Regional Conservation Partnership Program. Both of those, we have additional funds to do more faster. And in both of those cases, 35 to 40% of the money went to underserved producers. And then finally, we have a small watershed program for communities. And in that program, this last year, we were fortunate to have the opportunity to work with the Black Mayors Association and to place an emphasis on rural communities where there's persistent flooding. And through the bipartisan infrastructure law money last spring, the chief came out and announced $96 million for 20 or so communities and watersheds here in Arkansas. Additional money for us to address problems in historically underserved areas. So I think we've made great progress here in the past years. In this past year, and then looking into the future, we have similar sites. We want to keep doing what we've been doing and doing more, better and faster. Our highest priorities, I think we heard some from Dr. Goldman. We'll hear a little more at lunchtime, I believe, but we're hearing clearly here in Arkansas that the diversity, equity, inclusion is going to continue to be at the front in terms of priorities that we're addressing, along with urban conservation, climate smart agriculture, and forestry. And then to those 3, I think the 2 things we add here at the state level is technical training. We have so many new employees, many that have been here just since COVID. And we have partners that need training, and we're behind on our training just because of the problems through COVID and getting together and providing that. So we've got a huge emphasis on training that'll be for this next year and beyond. And then we want to continue to leverage and build on the partnerships that we have, because we know we can't do the job that we have with what producers need here in Arkansas without help from our partners. So on the equity and inclusion, we're continuing the dialogue about what the needs are internally and externally. We've established committees to do that, working with and through our state technical committee. We're listening. If you're not engaged and you have any ideas or suggestions, please make sure and get in touch with me or Alvin Pierre, our outreach coordinator. On the urban side, things have really taken off as well. We've tried to keep a pretty loose definition because we have some metro areas that are really interested in doing urban conservation within large metropolitan areas. But we also have food deserts out in rural communities. And in feedback that we got from all the counties in the state through our local work group process, more than a third of those said they really wanted to place a priority and more emphasis on providing more outreach and assistance in those small farms. So we're really excited about that. We expect that to continue to grow. Over the last year, we doubled the amount of funding for high tunnels. I'm challenging our folks to look at something with a similar increase for this next year as well. And then maybe the biggest opportunity into the future from where we are today is regarding the funding dealing with climate smart agriculture and forestry. And when we say climate smart ag and forestry, we're really talking about many of the same practices that we're already working with producers on. Practices that they want in their portfolio to be productive. And so we may say reduce greenhouse gases or storing carbon, but what we're really talking about is on cropland, things like cover crops, crop rotations, nutrient management, irrigation water management on rice, things along those lines. So Dr. Goldman mentioned the partnership for climate smart commodities, and there is a huge amount of funding. Some partners have already been funded. I think there's some 20 projects that touch in Arkansas where we'll have partners working. And we're really excited because we've got these partners that are going to engage in looking at new markets and new ways of getting conservation on the ground. So we're interested in learning from what they do and figuring out how we can best integrate that into our activities into the future. Then there's the Inflation Reduction Act that was passed this year. I think there were around $40 billion for USDA overall, looking at a number of different things, and about 20 billion of that promoting climate smart agriculture with NRCS conservation programs. Now, this is not just a one-year deal, something that will happen over the next 10 years or so, but it's something that creates a great opportunity for us. And again, not just a one-year deal. This is money that's on the top of what we're already being funded for our regular programs. And so in Arkansas, where we have a huge backlog and people are not getting funded, there's an opportunity for them to get caught up and get funding, but then also an opportunity for us to go out and do outreach and marketing to bring in new applications as well. We're working on strategies to target this funding, to streamline program delivery, to help make it a little bit easier, to leverage partnerships, advance equity, and then quantify the outcomes. But I'll repeat one part of that. Part of that funding includes the equity piece. So that will be integrated into our delivery of these new funds through the Inflation Reduction Act. And just as an example, last year, before this act was passed, the chief of our agency gave several states an opportunity to participate in a cover crop pilot program. Fortunately, Arkansas was one of the states selected, and through this program, we had a rapid, streamlined, targeted approach. And instead of our regular EQIP program that sometimes can take a year or more for an applicant to get into, within a couple of months, people came in, they applied, they found out if they were approved, they had their contract set up, and were ready to go and implement their program. We had huge positive feedback on that. I think that's an example of the kinds of things we'd like to introduce to this new IRA funding, finding ways to make things a little easier, work a little faster, and get the money out there and the conservation on the ground just as quickly as possible. So with these additional resources headed our way, we're really excited. We know there's challenging times trying to figure out how to make all this work, how to get it integrated, but we think we've established a great foundation with the partnerships we have, the help doing the outreach, the progress we've made in reaching out to the underserved, that with the additional funds, and if we keep this same vision, this all lands and all people, that everybody's going to be able to get the assistance if they want it, that we're going to get closer than ever in getting there. So to me, as I look at our past, where we are at the present, where we're headed in the future, all I can say is it looks really bright. I'm looking forward to it. And I know our employees are excited as well. I hope you are too. If you or anyone else would like any more information, we've got a whole group of NRCS people here that are ready, willing to provide information to you. You can contact me directly. Normally, the best way to do this would be contact your local district conservationist. Make sure you have a relationship with them. Ask them about getting a conservation plan and what funding may be available for you. I don't know where I am on the time, but I think that's what I have. So thank you. Appreciate it.
You have one or two questions for Mr. Sullivan now, or we can hold them over till the end. Any questions? I'd like to make one comment. One of the problems that has served as a barrier for getting services from USDA is air property. NRCS is funded ALCDC to work with air property owners. So if you have air property issues that keep you from getting the services that Mr. Sullivan and the other people are going to talk about, come see ALCDC and we'll help you resolve your air property issue, and then you can get full services. Let's give Mike a look. Yes, ma'am. I didn't.
She said, explain what air property is.
Oh, explain the air property.
Air property is sometimes if you've had land in a family over a long period of time, you may not have clear title. There may be, and in our family, it went from my great-grandparents to my grandparents to their kids and then us. And before you know it, you might have 12 or 16 or 24 different people that are partial owners, but it may not be clear on the title. And for our programs, we have to have somebody that has the ability to sign for the land. And so if there's many people that are involved, it becomes complicated sometime for you to be able to have the appropriate sign off to participate for programs. Does that help?
Our next presenter is from Farm Service Agency, the State Director, Ms. Jill Floyd. Let me get over. What? That's the rule development. Okay. Rule development.
Morning. I'm Cora Pruitt. I work for Rural Development, and I'm sitting in for Director Jill Floyd this morning. Cora Pruitt. Yes. Flora Pruitt. And I work out of the Forest City office. What Rural Development do is we offer financial and technical assistance to increase economic opportunities and to improve the quality of life in rural America, as well as try to help rural communities to grow and prosper. And some of the programs that we work with deal with our single family housing program. We have a 504 program to make repair loans to those who own their own homes. We also have a multifamily housing program, which is where entities come in, can build apartment complexes or duplexes and things like that, which is not, we help fund those programs under those entities outright. And we also have our farm worker program, which is our labor housing program. Farm owners that may need housing assistance for their workers to live in, then we do provide financing for those under those farmers. Just to talk about a little bit of our program, which is our community facility program, which is what I directly mainly work with. Under that program, we have our community facility loan and grant, which we provide essential facilities for small, low-income communities based on their needs. And if we look at the adjusted income, you must be at or below the applicable income. I'm sorry, this is our housing program. The individual has to be, look at their adjusted income and be at or below the applicable low income limit for the area that they want to apply or buy a house in. The housing has to be decent, safe, and sanitary, as well as you must be unable to get financing from maybe say another financial institution or a bank or something like that. We look at it as we're the lenders of last resort, and that's why we say low and income applicants. As far as the size of the house can be modest in size. It cannot exceed the value that you may be eligible for to borrow. We cover 12 counties in that area to provide assistance for those who want to apply to see if they may qualify. And the maximum loan amount is based on your income as well. And I have a list. I think our maximum loan amount goes up to like $336,000, but it will be based on what you qualify for yourself based on your income. The 504 program, it is known as the Section 504 Home Repair Program. You must own that home and occupy that home yourself, not able to obtain credit elsewhere, and you must be in the very low income category. That loan now used to be the limit was $20,000. The maximum loan amount now has been increased to $40,000. You have to be at least 62 or older to apply for the grant portion of it, which maximum grant is now $10,000 for a total of $50,000 if you own that home and you're needing like health and safety issues removed, which we look at housing, the floors, windows, doors, handicap accessibility, then we can provide financing for that. And anything that's over $25,000, we would have to take a lien out on that property or that home. On the community facility programs is where we deal with cities, towns, counties, nonprofit organizations, and which is public bodies. We provide assistance in like healthcare, which is deal with like medical equipment, beauty equipment, ambulance services, as well as our city's police department, fire department, things like that. We can assist them in getting that equipment that they need to provide health and safety for the cities. As far as our public service goes on that side, we have provided assistance for child care centers, public libraries, community centers, food pantries, and even farmers markets. All of these things you can apply as if you are a city, town, and county. With that, we based on a priority score with that for those cities, towns, and counties. Whether you're 75% grant eligible, 35% grant eligible, it all depends on the median household income and the population of that city. And that's where that grant portion will come in at. We also have our water and environmental program. That's where we assist cities, towns, and counties also to improve their water, their wastewater system, their solid waste, and their disposal system in rural areas. The city must have the legal capacity to borrow and to be able to repay that loan or to pledge security for those loans and to operate and maintain that facility. Right now, we have our direct loan terms is for our poverty, we have like a 2.125%. The intermediate is 2.75%, and our market rate is 3.5%. And I also have a copy of all of these fact sheets that I laid in the back, if anyone would like to get one. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to try to answer them for you.
Thank you. I want to bring your attention to the single family housing issues and encourage you to go to rural development and because I know housing is a big issue in this part of the country. I get the question, do you still do cooperative grant? Cooperative?
Okay, those are more likely done out of our state office.
Are you state offices? Okay. One thing that we really tried to do here is amass acres. If you can get co-ops formed, then you're better off from a producer perspective. You can't really, in my opinion, do row crop farming with 100 acres of soybeans or whatever. The equipment now, there's not enough room to turn a combine around in almost. So it becomes kind of incumbent upon us to get together to form cooperative, to compete, to represent, to be able to do row crop farming. Different story with alternative crops. You can raise vegetables and urban agriculture and those kind of things, but to get into to continue the row crop farming, you need acres. Any other questions for rural development?
We do, as far as our housing program goes though, part of our areas may be considered ineligible. So therefore we would have to have an actual address to see what may be covered under Pulaski County. And that's because of the population may be over the limit that they're allowed.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
We've had people. That's good.
Could you tell me what those population limits are? And the population limits where the community may not be eligible for rural development service.
Okay, I didn't bring a handout of them, but I do have a population limit sheet here for the 12 counties that we cover. And it also based on the number of people in the household for the housing as well. If you live in Lono County, as far as housing goes, like I said, our loan limits now are 336,500. But if you're a family of one person, you cannot make over 62,900 for a person, one household family, if you want to apply for assistance for housing. But we also have the other counties listed as well.
So if I wanted to build a house, I could come to you and say, give you my paperwork and so forth. One question we've had before personally is contractor. So the contractor has to be somebody on your list of approved contractors, correct?
No, we don't. That individual has to find their own contractor. Now, we used to have a list, but they have to locate their own contractor, and he must be licensed.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I can come to you with my own contractor and qualify and you'll build my house.
There's a paperwork, you have to be eligible and qualified. Okay.
We have an existing home, but we would like to hook up to the city water and sewer system. Is that something that you could help us with? Is there anything available to help with that?
Okay, I don't have anything with me today, but there is a fact sheet that we had that talks about home water, sewer, well, programs like that. And I can try to get your information and get that to you.
I just give a. Sorry.
Did you, or, the single, parent, did you say there were grants available or not?
Okay,
Single parent.
For single family housing. It's the single family housing repair program.
And what qualifies?
You have to be at least 62 or older for the grant portion of it. And you have to be in the very low income category for that.
Or otherwise you would have to get a loan.
It would be a loan, which would be under the same program, but it would be considered a 504 loan program. And that loan goes up to $40,000 at a 1% interest rate over a period of 20 years.
So in all these programs, it behooves you to understand where your local USDA service center is in your county or supported by your county, and going into the USDA service center, your local USDA service center, and apply for all of these services. Our next presenter is Ms. Perry Farm Service Agency. Stage director. Good person.
Good morning. I am Terry McManus. I am filling in for Doris Washington, who is our state director, and I am able to be here today. And Dr. King, I might not be able to outrun you with the dog scenario, but if it was snakes, no doubt about it. I'd be another county ahead of you. A little bit about myself. I am originally from the Lonoke County Service Center Agency with Farm Service Agency, was there for 27 years. And since then I have been in our state office, and I am now the Farm Programs Chief. I've been with Farm Service Agency for 35 years. I have seen a lot of programs, some that worked, some that didn't work, some that have been improved on, some that have been done away with. There have been multiple farm bills that I have helped to administer. Yes, we've had issues out there, making sure that everyone is informed of programs that we have, trying to implement those programs and be fair to everyone in doing this process. FSA does a lot of outreach with UAPB that seems to be a good source for us in trying to get our program information out to you, the farmers and the ranchers that we have in the state. I appreciate all of the farmers and the ranchers. If it weren't for y'all, we wouldn't have a food industry. There wouldn't be a need for us. So I do appreciate the time that you put in to servicing and providing food for the United States and other countries. I'm going to expand a little bit on my air property for just a second, because Arkansas is one of the states that is covered under the Uniform Partition of Air Property Act, which is the UPHPA, and that happened as of February 2021. So in Arkansas, you're going to need some type of court order verifying the land meets the definition of air property, a certification possibly from the local recorder. And this is all if you don't have a will or a deed stipulating that you do own on the ground. So with that information, you can come into your local farm service agency, which is pretty much the hub for FSA and NRCS in establishing farms, establishing your owners, your operators, if you aren't the one actually doing the farming out there. We do need some information from you when you bring these documents in. If you don't have a farm number already, it may take a little bit to get that established, because we have to draw it off in our system, and depending on how complicated it is as to how long it might take us to get you a farm number established. we're going to need an address, and if you will provide it, a social security number. If you don't supply your social security number to us, it's not a requirement. But if you don't supply that to us, then you will never receive any payments, because we have to have a social security number. Or if you're a trust, state, corporation, something to that nature, and you have a tax identification number, we will use that number. We do get down to the warm bodies when we are looking at what we call entities, which are your corporations or partnerships. We do get down to the warm bodies. So these are just a few items that FSA needs in order to establish a farm number for you, so that you can participate in different programs that are offered out there. Now, for the historically underserved, we have 4 categories that we deal with. We have the beginning, the socially disadvantaged, the veterans, and then limited resources. How many of y'all have been farming less than 10 years? Okay, you would be considered a beginning farmer. What that will do is, if you will give us the information on what is a CCC 860, declaring that, then some of our programs, you could be waived from our administrative fees that we have. Some of our programs, it could give you additional money. Let's say we have a 75% cap that we're going to pay on this program. Well, it's possible, if you meet one of these 4 categories, that you could get an additional 10 to 15%. Just depends on the program and how it was written in the regulations, if this is available to you for that particular program. NRCS has an AD 2047 that is used to capture this information on if you don't do a CCC 860 with FSA. Now, when we get into the socially disadvantaged, it covers particular groups. And I have a printout of this information on a table in the back there that y'all can pick up, that covers a lot of FSA's programs and NRCS programs as well. The only difference with NRCS and FSA is FSA includes women in that category. You don't have to be Asian, Black, or African American, Native, Hawaiian, Hispanic. Women can be included in that as far as socially disadvantaged is concerned. Then you have your veterans, which you have to have been released from the service under good conditions other than dishonorable, and to qualify as a beginning farmer and rancher, and had had a veteran status during the last 10 years. Your limited resource, it is the 2 years totaling the house income for a family of 4 is what they use as far as the national poverty level. And I think in Arkansas, it's 27,750, but there are 10 counties that exceed that limitation. So you would need to check to see what the poverty level is in your county. So these are where, FSA can possibly help under the historically underserved farmers and rangers. And I'm going to get into a little bit of the programs that FSA has. Right now, we are all aware of the drought conditions. I was not able to check yesterday because I wasn't in the office, but every Thursday we get an update of counties that are eligible to participate in what we call our livestock forage program, which is very busy right now. We have 68 counties out of 75 that are eligible to participate. We have counties that are to the east and central part of the state that have never participated in the livestock forage program that are now eligible to participate because of the drought that we have had this year. As Dr. Goldman had mentioned, the drought affects us as far as row crops go, but having irrigation systems, that helps with that, being able to irrigate. But the livestock forage program is covering your grazing loss that you have. It's going to cover hay, additional hay that possibly could need to be purchased because you didn't get the quantity that you normally do because of the drought. So we also have the emergency livestock program, which is getting ready to be available out there. If, let's say, you had to transport water, you have cattle and your pond is dry, you have no way to get water in there, you strictly rely on the rainfall. Then if you had to transport water in, there's a cost to do that. We're going to help compensate that. If you have to purchase additional feed above your normal, then there's that option as well. So those are two programs that are really strong right now in Arkansas with the LFP and the ELAP program. We also have the non-insured assistance program, and these are crops that are what we call our specialty crops that aren't insured by your normal risk management, like your row crops are. They could be your watermelon, sweet potatoes, basil, different things that we call specialty crops. These are, this program is one that has an administrative fee applied to it. But if you meet the qualification for the historically underserved and you complete the form and tell us that, then the fee is waived. So this is one of the programs that we now have, revised it, and we do have the waiver so that the administrative fees can be applied to it. And on that note, our NAP insurance, you can purchase it or have it waived. It does cover grazing and hay along with your specialty crops. The sign-up period for this is by, depending on the type of crop that you have. Our grazing and hay is getting ready to come up here in the next couple of months. So you would need to contact your local county office and inquire about that so that it is done timely and you can participate, because with this drought under the LFP program, if you had NAP coverage, which is our non-insured, if you had that, you could participate in both programs. So, make sure that you check some of your specialty crops, your watermelon, purple hull peas, things to that nature. That closing date is not until the end of February. So just check with your local office if there are specialty crops that you are going to be growing or thinking about growing this next year. Check with them to make sure you don't miss the closing date, because there are some different closing dates, and I'm just choosing these as examples to let you know. We have safety net programs, which are marketing assistance loans that, it's a low interest loan for your commodity. It's not on equipment or anything to that nature. It is strictly once you harvest the commodity, we use that as your collateral and we'll loan you money. It's a 9-month loan that you have in which to pay off. You don't make payments monthly. You can pay it off all at one time. Once you sell the thing, you had to be in a rice. Once you sell that bin of rice, then, the loan can get paid off from those proceeds. So that is out there available. We have, conservation programs. We have the CRP program, which if you have ground that you've been growing a row crop on, but it hasn't been producing the yield that you actually like because it may not have the soil type that you need. We can look at that and see if it qualifies for the Conservation Reserve Program. There are different projects that can be done on it, grasses, trees, bee pollinator is one of them. So we do have the Conservation Reserve Program, and depending on what type of practice you put on it, it depends on the time period, the length of the contract with us. There are farm storage facility loans that are available. They can cover grain bins, they can cover hay sheds, they can cover cold storage. So those are items that are available for you as well. And we do have direct and guaranteed youth loans that are out there. That's not my area of expertise to cover, but I did want to let you know that those are available through the Farm Service Agency as well. Any questions? Yes, sir.
Yes, ma'am. Will that be a second phase of the ER program? Is that gonna come out soon, or it's gonna be gone away?
It has not gone away. That information is not out there available yet. They are still trying to get all of the rules and the regulations on that, because there were a lot of questions for producers that weren't covered under the phase one, be it through insured through RMA or insured through FSA under our NAP program. There have been a lot of questions how to possibly help producers that didn't fall in either one of those categories. So they're still working on getting the policy and the procedure written on that. And that was a phone call that I had like a week ago. So it's still being worked on. Yes, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Someone really very hard on and qualify for both beginner and socially disadvantaged, and what other kind of qualifications do you need to have for more options?
What kind of qualifications?
What
What?
more options for other sources of money?
They can qualify as a beginning farmer. They can qualify as a limited resource. You aren't limited. You can qualify, possibly to all four of them.
Mike, with that question on, you said on honey producers,
So,
with that question on honey producers?
no, she just asked about what qualification can you qualify for beginner and a socially disadvantaged farmer, can you qualify for?
Oh,
Yes, and you can.
okay,
You can qualify under all of those categories.
That's the beginning one.
Beginning, limited resource, a veteran.
And all of those areas give those added points of benefits when you qualify in those categories.
Different programs. You can have a lower payment, down payment for the farm loan section of it, depending on, how you answer that question.
Hey, can you have, like you want to raise fruitful peas, how many acres do you have to have for that?
You can have half an acre, you can have 100 acres. Yes, sir. And that's like that's a good question that I should have brought up. When you are establishing a farm number with FSA, there is no limit. We can establish a farm number for half an acre. We can establish a farm number for 100 acres. So there is no limit to acreage in establishing a farm number.
Or where you gotta go to get that?
Go to your local farm service agency, your local service center.
Okay, thank you.
Any of these loans guaranteed for minority farmers, what is the maximum loan amount?
What was it?
What is the maximum loan amount?
Are they loan guaranteed for minority farmers, and what's the maximum loan amount?
No, it doesn't get it, don't give me a loan amount. I know that there is one depending on if it's a ownership loan or if it's an operating loan. I do know, and the micro loan, which is the small loan, there, it's a $50,000 amount.
What was that question? The question on the maximum loan amount for guarantee loans?
Mhm.
That,
Yes, sir.
unless you change, I was thinking there was 1.8 million on the guarantee loans at the direct lender, they got 1.8 million. That was 1.4 million.
And
But of course, the direct loan itself, from FSA, or the regular operating loan is $400,000 for operating loan, last farm bill for the operating loan, and on the capital investment, which is a separate side for land purchases, depending upon your eligibility, meeting the requirement of 3 years of operation or more, but it's $400,000 for land purchase capital, direct loan, on FSA side. And then there's $400,000 on the direct loan side for operating purposes as well. On the guarantee, if I'm not mistaken, I think that's either 1.4 or 1.8. I think it went to 1.8 million on the guarantee loan side, working with a direct lender, a bank or CDFI.
Thank you for that information, because like I said, that's not an area that I.
We can follow up on that in the conclusion. Let's move through and see how much time we have left at the end. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You know by now, you didn't know me, I'm kind of simple-minded, so I like to kind of stop every once in a while and kind of get a synopsis. So what I've heard so far is if you have a housing issue, like shelter, you're worried about your house, you want to build one, you want to repair it, you want to do something with your house, you need to go see rural development. And here's a lady here who has addressed those programs, so that's where you need to go. If you want to farm, garden, or whatever, you're going to grow something, you need to go see FSA to get that started. That's assuming that you cannot qualify loan-wise as a commercial lender. Listen to that carefully. If you can't qualify for a commercial loan at a bank or whatever, then you come to FSA. That's a requirement, right? You got to be denied first, which sort of says that you really need to clean up your act and get your business together and get your finances together, et cetera. Now, once you decide that you're going to go grow something or going to farm, you need to understand NRCS because you need to have best practices. You need to do research conservation, right irrigation, best practices in farming. And there's money and programs to support all this. What I'm trying to say is, if you got property, you need to understand highest and best use. You don't need to let lots lay vacant, acres out there just growing up. You need to take that resource, you need to take that property and convert it into your highest and best use of that property. You might want to go to the NRCS and put it in an easement program. You just got to belly up to the bar and not let your resources just go fallow. Government has plenty of programs where you can use monies to fix your situation, to improve your financial status. And there's a lot of support for minorities. So, we need to do that. Now, at this point, there's no point in growing if you can't sell. If you're talking row crop, what you have to worry about there is risk management. You need to understand the commodity. You need to understand how to hedge a crop. You need to understand how to market. You need to understand insurance. If you're growing alternative crops, vegetables, those kind of things, you need to have a market. What?
don't have to, with USDA
What did you say?
from the bank.
You don't have to be denied. No, she's saying you don't have to be denied
Oh,
from the bank.
That's she said,
I can have credit. It comes to FSA, get money, huh? Thank you. But really, all I'm trying to tell you is we have a tendency of not taking advantage of opportunities. And we're just dealing with opportunities here, and we can't sit on our laurels. We can't just let it go waste. I drive around here and I see land just laying out. That doesn't make sense because you can put it in some kind of a program, CRP or easement programs or something, or grow vegetables. You got these resources, so you need to understand how to tap into those resources. Now we're going to go into. I'm not going to try to pronounce your name. Yeah. Come forward. Okay. From DHS. All right.
Thank you so much. And I know it's getting close to lunchtime, but bear with me. Whenever I talk about food, my stomach automatically starts growling. So I understand where you're at, but we've got some exciting things that are going on. I don't know if any of you have seen me when we did the virtual meetings with Dr. King. Well, my name is Jim Ponzini. You can call me Jim. And I'm with DHS, and you're probably wondering, what does DHS have to do with farming and food? Well, I'm going to tell you. My unit is called the Commodity Distribution Unit. We work directly with USDA in providing food, ordering, bringing into the state, storing, distributing food for all their food programs, their food distribution programs. So what does that mean? We've got the National School Lunch Program. All of your schools get food from us. We've got the Child and Adult Care Feeding Program. So your at-risk programs, after-school programs, we provide food for. We have summer feeding program. When the kids are out of school, they need a place to go to get something to eat. So we provide food for that. We also have the other side, which is the household side, providing food to food banks, which goes out to pantries, soup kitchens, food distributions. If you're as old as me, you'll remember people always talking about government cheese. Well, we get the food in and we get it to the families and individuals, children that need it. We also have a senior program, which is strictly for seniors, where they get a great deal of food each month. So we're in food distribution. But we have 3 exciting grants that USDA has developed that we're implementing. And they're 2-year grants. And I'm going to describe 3 of them. 2 of them deal directly with you, the farmers and producers. But the first one kind of leads up to how they all tie in together. The first one is called the Reach and Resiliency Grant. And what that does is provide funds for underserved areas of the state to build a pantry or get the funding so that if they need shelving, storage space, refrigerators, that those underserved areas can develop a pantry to serve that community. The next one, I'm just going to simply call it Farm to Food Bank grant. We got $3.7 million that's been approved for these underserved areas from the first grant to get food from socially disadvantaged farmers. Okay, so we're building up on these grants and the funding, making the resources available. So what that means is, you know, we've worked with about 7 distributors. And we're earmarking and we're getting applications from the socially disadvantaged farmers within the state that want to sell their fruits, vegetables, produce, whatever they're growing or producing to the food banks. Okay, you may want to think, you know, well, that sounds like I've got to be a large farmer, a large producer. No, you have an acre, come on, sign on up. You know, you may think, oh, I have to be close to these areas to get the food to them. One thing I found is one of the problems is getting your food to those distribution sites. You can't drive 100 miles across the state and take your food there. You may have a market for it, someone willing to pay for it, but you can't get it there. Well, this is what the funds are for. We're allowing the food banks to not only purchase the food, but if there's a need for transportation, those funds are available to get it, and then they'll get it to the pantries to distribute to the families. The third grant is working with you and the schools. So again, we've got money available. Schools will work with you, negotiate what they can use. They'll have the funds to purchase the food, distribution costs. If that's a problem, they'll have the funds for that. And we've had, it's close to, I guess, 300 schools in the state. That's including private schools, charter schools, things like that. We have 100 schools already signed up saying, we're going to participate. They've already told us how much money they would like of the grant that they said they can use to purchase food from you. Okay, so we're trying to work out the details, trying to make it where it makes sense for both the schools, the food banks, and for you to create this relationship. After this gets going, we hope this relationship continues in the future. And we plan to be there even after the grant ends to help this relationship continue. And so I do have literature in the back. We put together training videos on how this is going to look like, how to fill out forms. We have produced a YouTube video that's online, but we also have printed material. So we have all the information and everything you need. So where are we now with the grants? I've got to get legislative approval. After that, we're waiting on the grant funds to come into our account. When that happens, we're ready to go. But in the meantime, I've got catalogs listing the distributors, the schools, all their contact information, plus all the farmers and producers that have approached us today. Now, with the distributors and the schools, I had to have some deadlines. You know, I've got to make contracts in order to spend this money. So I cut them off and we've got our list. We've got our list of distributors, we've got our list of schools. For the farmers, producers, that's open from now until the future. If you say, hey, I see what, you know, there's this producers doing with the schools, I'd like to be part of that. Well, we'll add you to the list. It doesn't matter that the grant has already begun, we'll still add you to the list. And we'll give you that information so you can contact schools, you can contact distributors and build that relationship for the future. Does that sound good? I gotta recognize Dr. King because, you know, I may be good with logistics, ordering food, bringing it into the state, storing it, having trucks move around, but I've never worked in this capacity with farmers and producers before. So I do appreciate all his efforts in bringing us together. And I also appreciate the Department of Agriculture for their support and meeting with us and getting us names, getting us contact people who could assist us with this. So, you know, I'm learning alongside y'all, learning what we're doing. But our goal is to make it as easy as possible and have the process go smoothly to help you out. I will say I've commandeered a couple of people into my unit. One who will do training and videos. So we've got the videos available. Anything you need, we can do videos. But I also want to promote you as small, socially disadvantaged farmers, producers, in having our media crew come out, if you'd like, and do a story on you so we can further promote you to the state. So I know you probably have a lot of questions, but I know you're also hungry. So I'm gonna hang around a while. I've got information in the back room and my card, so you can contact me at any time. But before that, if there are any questions I can answer. Yes.
Yes, Ms. Bell, and I am actually one of the distributors. I work through Communities Unlimited.
Yes.
So I find that with the contract, here's my card, call me when you need something.
Very good, and you've been great, and we appreciate it.
And we are on their contract with,
Yes.
We've actually done an interview, and they said they may send someone out, we've gotten the training from her already.
Ah,
Hugh Schroeder, from them, and appreciate that, appreciate the opportunity to work with you, and look forward to it.
very good, and anything anybody needs, we're here to assist. So feel free to contact us. Yes. Yes.
Storage, transportation.
Yes.
One of the big things with me as a small underserved farmer is when you produce this crop, you're producing crops in the heat, basically most of the time of the year. You need somewhere quick, fast to store this. Say for instance, just let's say for in Little Rock, and we're going to the Pine Club. You have got to keep the vegetables cool until you get them. So our
big problem, and if there are any other small farmers in here with me, we have a problem of transportation, getting the vegetables out of the field, getting it into cool storage. And as small farmers, I don't know if we could have a hub somewhere that we could transport these vegetables to immediately, but I think what we need to make and I in that day, you're not gonna start picking one tray and two cars. You're gonna pick until you finish your problem, whatever you're doing for that day. So, like I say, some things like over the environment affects it immediately. So, again, farmers, anybody in here that's a small farmer, or you having the same problem that I'm having, cool storage. When you pick a vegetable, you need to store it. You can't pick up a vegetable, you need to store it. So you just need to see.
That's a great question. I'm glad you asked that. One thing is with these grants, we're building relationships. With the transportation costs, I don't expect you to have a box truck with a cooler on it, but the funds are there for that. Our office also has a bob truck with a cooling unit on it. You know, if you want something frozen, it'll take care of it. Okay, so I think that part we can tie down. Now, let's say you want to take it to a school, or you want it to go to several schools, because it's a big truck. The school only needs 10 cases, and we got a truck of 500 cases. Why don't we build a relationship with these food banks who have that warehouse storage capability for fresh produce, and then from there it goes out to the schools? That's something with this information and the things you're getting, we can come up with ideas. How do we solve this problem? And then work with these relationships. Because there's no reason why you can't grow something and bring it to anywhere in the state for distribution. I don't want you to limit yourself just to your local market. So let's think about how we can use the contacts, the resources we have available to assist.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
We have one more presenter that's going to be virtual, but before and move to him, let me just say one thing, okay? You know, Dr. King's organization does outreach and technical assistance. This is part of outreach. And we've asked you to help us with the outreach. Take this information to people that you know who might need assistance. And then it gets simple. Now, you can just come here, or call here, or some staff member will take care of your problem in terms of taking you to the right place, telling you what you need to do, or who you need to talk to. In other words, we make it easy. Right? We can tell you that, you know, based on what you have here, you probably need to put that land into the conservation easement or CRP or WRP, or you need to get a grant loan or whatever. So call Dr. King and his staff, and they will tell you if you need help, where to go, or they will assist you in that process.
I had a question about storage. Like this year, we did a lot of Purple Hub feed. I mean, a lot. And we actually ran out of, but we didn't run out. I didn't stop by meat. I didn't stop by my bacon and pork chops. I didn't have
buying our stuff in order to store these, because, you know, these have to be frozen. We pick them, we clean them, and we bag them. So we sell them, you know, bag frozen. So, I heard you mention storage, so do you help with, some place to store this type of, okra? We bag our okra and freeze it, so, you know, we do need storage.
Right, now, we don't have funds to build you the extra storage. However, what can we do to help you with storing it? Is there some place close by that when you're building this relationship, even a school that would be willing to help store, or a food bank to help store, you're working into a relationship with them to begin with, would they be willing to assist?
That's it. We're gonna have some follow-up meetings to this. And, you know, I know we worked all that alternative market, new market opportunities, both with the producers, DHS, and the market outlet, you know, how the system has the best work as far as new market. We're talking about new market opportunities. This is what it brings to the table. That's one. For the smaller producers and for the micro urban farmers. So I mean, you know, if you put too much on, you may not come back to even. I don't want to talk to you, but let me just say this, and I know we got to move to the next presenter. You have USDA Rural Development. We probably have more conversation with them. They provide funding. You all can fund storage facilities, all right? No, I'm not saying rural development.
As far as I know, they haven't told me that we do on that end as far as trying to do that yet.
Yes, okay, so I think that's a mistake. And then you have FSA. FSA also funds storage facilities. And then you have FSA on the operational side of it as far as the farming operation. We try to put those things together from a business plan perspective, based on what the needs are of those operations, be it micro urban farms, small farmers, just like you do with the larger farmers. And also, you know, it'll take some discussion. Some of it takes a one-on-one situation, you know, for us to deal with these clients. Depending on the rate of the operational side, there may be 2 or 3 clients together to create what JD said, that cooperative side of it. With a cooperative approach to it. And again, you're back to rural development, possibilities on that from a funding perspective. So we have some work to do, production side, farmer side. But one thing we don't want to do, we don't want to go through that process on the production side and the supply side and know we have not built this market opportunity side. With new market opportunity, know the market there, localize the market, and dealing with that producer supply, micro urban farm side. That's not our concept approach to it. So we know we got some more work to do. This is Friday Einstein.
All right, no, now, Mike, is Mr. Webb ready? Okay, we're gonna move now to Cargill. Mr. Benson Webb is gonna give us a presentation on the market.
All righty. Good morning, good afternoon. Can you guys see me or hear me? All right, so I want to thank Dr. King for inviting me and being able to speak to everyone today. I am Benson Webb. I was the past project manager for the Black Farmer Equity Initiative at Cargill, where our goal is to increase the access to markets, access to information and technology, and access to capital in terms of growing the Black farmers, ranchers, and growers' ability to provide for themselves in terms of creating sustainability and profitability for their farms and their businesses. And I just want to talk a little bit about how the Black Farmer Equity Initiative came to fruition and what we plan on doing in the future, working with ALFDC and being able to partner with them on providing these necessary pillars in terms of the Black farmer success. So starting off, we started the Black Farmer Equity Initiative after the events of the George Floyd murder in Minneapolis. So Cargill being a Minnesota-based company and wanted to find a way to address those disparities that are in the Black community. And they created different pillars and different goals that Cargill has to reach. So addressing anti-Black racism, advancing underrepresented groups globally, and advancing gender parity. And through that, the Black Farm Equity Initiative came to be, because our goal is to help build a more equitable agricultural economy by helping increase the participation, profitability, and productivity of the Black farmer, ranchers, and growers, and putting producers at the center of those solutions. So in the beginning, we had different listening sessions with our customers being Target, McDonald's, Disney, Gordon's Food Services, a few other customers we had, and just really gave them the opportunity to listen to the Black farmer. So starting off, we were working directly with the 100 ranchers and the National Black Growers Council, and they would come present, talk about the plight of the Black farmer and things that they needed done. Because again, at a large size as Cargill, we've noticed that all the other companies that have iterations of helping the Black farmer start off from, this is how we think your problems are, and this is the solutions we think as a corporation will help you. Cargill decided to take a different approach by coming down and working with the Black farmers and listening to them and letting them say, hey, this is our issue. This is the solutions we, as people going through these issues, think that we need help with, and this is how you all can help us. So we did that from May 2020 to October 2020, just allowed them to really speak, tell them what's going on. And then coming from that, that's where our ideas of the access to capital, access to markets, access to information, tuition, because those were the main areas that we see that Black farmers in the Southeast have the most need for. So fast forward, what we decided to do was help with, when it comes to markets, we're helping advance infrastructure, advocacy and policy change, and trying to increase scales for the Black farmer. When it comes to capital, work to increase the supplier diversity within ourselves as Cargill. And now we're happy to report that we have increased our spending with Black producers by 533%. And this is through the help of working with the organizations we are partnering with. And we want to thank them for their help with that. And we're looking to increase that number as time goes on. Simplifying the lending solution and helping with business and estate planning. Along with that, information technology, we're looking at regenerative agriculture, training and business skill development, and next generation of agriculture. And this is the way we're doing that now, is working with, again, working with the smaller, or not smaller, but Black Farm Equity Initiative groups, partners. So ALDC being one of them, and we have paid out at least $1.8 million worth of grants to build the capacity. So along with that, we have different opportunities in terms of, if you're a row cropper, I know we have a Target partnership where they were buying cotton directly from the Black farmers at a premium, just so we can produce it and sell it through different avenues, maybe Target, maybe Disney needs something or something and so forth. So that's one opportunity. And I know to be able to take advantage of the opportunity, you would have to be a member of the National Black Growers Council. And it's not just, you don't have to just go cotton now, but if you go in, you work with the contract and work with that group, they'll be able to help you scale up to be able to sell to Target, sell to all the other customers we have. And along with that, we are working on a beef supply chain with Gordon Food Services and the 100 ranchers. So being able to buy cattle, heads of cattle at a discount, not discount, but a premium to the ranchers, and being able to produce different versions of cafeteria food. So cafeteria hamburgers, cafeteria sausages, things of that nature, and just being able to do that with HBCUs and other college campuses. And then as time goes on and the way we're working with ALDC, we're looking to find a way to partner with them as well, to provide opportunities for their members and for the community of Arkansas and the communities of Black farmers as a whole. And I know I didn't want to take up too much time, because I know I am taking up the lunch hour right now, but I just wanted to make sure everyone understood what we're doing now. And if you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them. And I would love to offer my current project manager or director of the Black Farm Equity Initiative, Carl Benz. I can put his number and name in the chat below, so you all can have that and be able to reach out to him, ask any questions you need, and be able to find a way to be a part of this supply chain. So I guess I can stop now and answer any questions. I know that was kind of quick, because again, I didn't want to take away everyone's time on the food part of it, but I wanted to make sure I do have time to answer any questions.
Any questions?
Yeah, on the last stop, seemed like you have great awesome things, after you get the tip again. Back last stop.
Can you repeat that one more time?
They're like you got livestock, how can you get in the program on that?
So his question is, if we have livestock, how do you get into the program with Cargill or with the Black Farm Equity Initiative? Because Cargill still has their own supplier diversity team, and I can put the name of person that you can reach out to do for Natalie McGrady, who is the head of supplier diversity. And if you have the necessary capacity to be a supplier for Cargill, I can give you that name and number as well in the chat here, or send it with Dr. King, and he can disperse it that way. I don't know if I answered your question or not, because I kind of have a hard time hearing.
Thank you.
Okay.
Dr. Goldman.
Mr. Webb? Is that right?
Yes, sir. Yes,
sir.
sir.
Dwayne Goldman. How are you doing?
You know, I can't complain on this lovely Friday afternoon.
I guess you can hear me. I don't know if you went over this. Now, I need to fully disclose that in 2020, when we were starting the venture with Cargill, I was executive director of the National Black Growers Council. Okay, so since I've been with the department, I've been on arm's length away. But I do know that the Cotton Initiative resulted in T-shirts being in Target stores, produced with primarily Black farm cotton for Black History Month. And I just wanted to compliment Cargill for their involvement in making that happen and moving this thing along so that we have some tangible benefits to show from this equity work that we're doing. I don't know if you made that distinction. But I also want to say that in your procurement program, when I think about ALCDC and all the stuff that's produced collectively in this room, I challenge you to continue to work, help these people be more successful in getting in on some of the marketing opportunities that are there. I know we at USDA put a lot of resources behind that. So again, just wanted to compliment you on that. Thank you for your work.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Goldman. We really appreciate you for helping us with that. So I'm sorry. And to Dr. Goldman's point, that was the way of doing the proof of concept that this is something that's tangible. Because again, we didn't want this to be a handout, just help Black folks for the moment and then wait till the next big thing happens. This was something that we wanted to make sure this was a business decision that made business sense. So that's why we're happy that we were able to put that cotton T-shirts in Target, have them sell it for the Black History Month. And then that showed the proof of work that this is something that's feasible, and we have to continue to do the work in the ground, growing it and making this to where we could bring in more people of color in this work.
Mr. Webb, you went on to you talked about some type of infrastructure assistance. Can you expound on that, and as far as marketing for small Black farmers, marketing, what resources are available for fiber optics or for just the ability to get to social media in some of these rural communities? I don't know if your organization, or if there's another organization that is that their grants and programs available just for the simplicity of just trying to communicate with the rest of the world in these rural areas. And it's open.
So we are looking. I'm sorry, but right now we don't have anything in place for that, but we are working with different organizations to increase that ability to increase that reach, because we noticed that was another issue, was being able to at least get your name out there and just kind of market with everything that's going on. So utilizing different projects like the Target Project and saying, hey, this came from specifically Black cotton growers in Alabama, and then finding those other opportunities there where we can market that way. But from this organic reach from getting you all out there on social media or just in the media itself, we are working on getting that there, getting that process and the project ready for that.
Thank
Any more questions? Mrs. Webb, we thank you very much.
All right, thank you all for having me. And again, I will send over those names and contact information to Dr. King, and he can help disperse that to the membership.
I want to thank the panel for their great presentations, and I want to leave this thought with you. If you need to always focus on getting the highest and best use out of whatever resources you have or whatever plans you have for the future. You need to understand that there are resources out there. You need to know how to tap into those resources. If you have questions and need assistance, please call ALFDC and we will assist you in the process. We will provide technical assistance with you, to you. That's the promise from Dr. King. Thank you.
If you could, would you have everybody just stand for 1 second? You want to do that?
People.
Good. Ladies and gentlemen, we're now going to our luncheon and award session, go into that along with our luncheon speaker who will be coming forward next, and the one that's going to introduce our speaker. And I want everybody to take a brief break. It won't take very long, but the one that's going to introduce the speaker is presently being interviewed by the TV station. It just happened to happen that way. We got to know he's got to do a TV interview, but he just stepped out. So I want to ask JD if he would to bless the food at this point. And when Mr. Sullivan returns back in, we will move forward accordingly with the agenda, with the introduction of our luncheon speaker, Mr. James Tillman. So if y'all just bear with us for 1 minute, it just happened to happen that way. I didn't put it on the agenda that the TV is going to be interviewing him now. I guarantee you that. Which is better.
Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this opportunity to serve, to meet, to greet. We pray that we will capitalize on these resources. And dear Lord, please bless the food as we take it for the health of our bodies. In Jesus' name we pray, amen. Amen. I got to come back to argue. Sir.
Some of the first break with conservation services and working back what I call the disenfranchised community areas. And I'm sure Mike knows that was way back in the way back. We talk about the years. It was a long time ago. Great appreciate that. Matter of fact, it was under the leadership of the generation before. It was his father, who was the head conservation administrator of Arkansas, that worked with us in doing that program, alternative crop technology and irrigation wells and level land. I'm going at this point again, I'm going to turn it over to Mike Mr. Sullivan at this point, State Conservation for Arkansas, and he's going to bring to you our luncheon speaker.
Well, good afternoon. Looks like everybody's doing pretty well. We got a good plate and still working on it. I have a real privilege now to introduce Mr. James Tillman. He's my supervisor. He is part of the NRCS National Leadership Team. He serves as regional conservationist, providing leadership and support nationally and to the Southeast region. And what that means is he supervises me and I think 11 other state conservationists, making sure we're doing the right things. And so I know he has his hands full, making sure that we're doing the right thing within the region and nationally as well. He served in a number of other capacities. He's been our Associate Chief for Conservation. That's like the #2 person in the whole agency. He served as State Conservationist in Georgia, Deputy State Conservationist in California, Assistant State Conservationist in a couple other states. He's held positions like Soil Conservationist, Resource Conservationist, District Conservationist, and even a 1890s USDA liaison. So very diverse experience, working in 7 states, now nationally. He has a degree in ag economics from UAPB. And so I know many of you know Mr. Tillman. He's a familiar face. What I really like about him is that he is from Arkansas. I know he has a special place in his heart for Arkansas. And then I guess the second thing is that he keeps me straight. So without further ado, I know you'll all give a warm welcome to James Tillman.
First say good afternoon to all of you, and such a pleasure to be here, and always tease folks. Kevin Price says, coming here is not too far from my mama's house. You go anywhere close to your mama's house, I don't know about you, Ms. Barnett, I just have a tendency to stop. Because I know that everything I can recall at my mama's house, it's always been good. Now, it's been his moments when Dr. Goldman, when maybe I didn't do what I should have done, but it's still mama's house. I tell you what, I just can't really think of a better place to be than being right here. You know, Dr. Calvin King, those quotes that I read about Dr. King, it says that whatever affects one directly. I just want to know, have you really read that? Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. And I can never be what I ought to be until you are what you ought to be. Folks, I tell you, I came here today to convey to you that I want to be what I want to be. But I can't be that. And Mike, we talked about that. I can't be that unless you get what you need on your operation, unless your hopes and dreams are realized. So we want to have a discussion. We won't, as Dr. Goldman always reminds me, we won't get it all done today, but we're going to get it done. Now, if you would, I'm going to have to use these right here. You know, I keep telling my wife, I don't need them. Okay? But my wife is right, I need these. Like my grandmama always told me. She said, just keep laying down and getting up. Just keep laying down and getting up. Yeah, you hear me? That's kind of like life, isn't it? Things don't always go well, isn't it? It's how we respond, how we react. I came in this morning, I looked around, I saw Calvin, Calvin is one guy. Calvin helped me get through college. So I saw Calvin twice, and then I came in and looked, and I saw some folks that I hadn't seen in a long time. I'm trying to get through this. But it's kind of like my mom always say, she always asked me, she said, are you helping somebody?
Right.
When I tell her where I've been and what I've done, she said, all I want to know is, are you helping somebody? So I looked through the door, when I saw some folks come in the room, I saw my BOAG instructor, Dr. John Turner. I saw a classmate, Mr. Whitfield, just wave your hand. I saw Ms. Thelma Bryan, my civics teacher. And I saw some others, but I just want to say this. I want to say that they came here because they helped me to be what I ought to be. And I'm not going to talk too long on that because I won't be able to get through that. But all of that, Reginald, all that's a part of why that Mike and I and others, that we fight for conservation, that we fight for you. Because I want to be what I ought to be. And I want to help you be what you want to be. I bring you greetings on behalf of my supervisor. You know him, Chief Terry Cosby. I got a chance to visit with him. Let me just make this thing. Maybe this will make you laugh. You know, I got into agriculture because I was throwing snowballs in high school. And Mr. John Turner wanted to paddle me. I don't need to finish that. After period, he did paddle me. But I sure wasn't going home after Goldman and let my mama know I got in trouble. Because she wouldn't do a whole lot. She just said, wait till Dad to get home. Place where I live, Mr. Jim, that's bad. They said, wait till Dad to get home. But Mr. John Turner didn't just stop right there. When he told me, he said, you're gonna join the FFA. You're gonna be extemporaneous public speaker. And you're gonna come off and you're gonna study every day. You know, that reminds me, I watched an old movie, Mike, probably a little bit off topic, called Temptation. And one of those folks, that temptation is sometimes we just need a little more. Right. And that moment I need a little bit more. But I came all the way from DC to let you know what Chief Cosby said. He said up under his administration, we're gonna do a little bit more. He said, I know what they did prior. He said, but my first, and Dr. Goldman talked about it, my first priority is gonna be equity. And I know what your theme is and what your theme talks about. The legacy, the equity and equity for all. What does the present and future hold? And Dr. Calvin King, based on your work, you know that if we don't take care of the present, there will not be a future. My job right here is not just explain what conservation programs out there, not just talk about it, not just put it on a piece of paper, but like my mama said, that if you're not making a difference and you're helping somebody, maybe you need to go back and restart and try again, because as a public servant, that's what our intentions are. I got a chance to visit with Chief Terry Cosby for about an hour this morning, out in the car. I kind of went through and we had talked already about what he wanted me to tell you, what he wanted me to talk about. And he wanted me to remind and confirm with you that NRCS, that the state conservation, that community-based organization, that groups like right here are going to be with you and walk with you, not just from the start, but to the finish. I was at a meeting with in Atlanta I think on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. And it's about 150 students and some professors and folks from 1880 University. And a question was asked. The young lady said, she said, I'm not sure that my resume is good enough. I'm not sure that, how do I get there? And a gentleman by the name of Gary Lee, state conservationist in Michigan, he looks like me. He walked up to it. He said that, ma'am, don't you worry about that. He said, I'm going to be with you from start to finish. Amen. And I think from a USDA perspective, I think what Chief Cosby is really saying is that we're going to be with you not just from the start, but to the finish. So, Mr. John Turner, that the work that you invested long ago, I'm trying every day to live up to that. I'm trying every day to plant a seed, not for the seed to stay in the ground, but for that seed to grow. You know, I want to mention, you know, you talk about helping somebody. I remember Calvin Trice when I was at Pine Bluff. I wanted to get my little degree and I wanted to look for a job after I got my degree. Calvin Trice followed me around, Dr. Gold. He followed me around on campus for a year and 3 months. I used to hide from him. Stayed off campus, I used to hide from him. He wanted me to go over to the corporate education department and apply for a job because he had worked with the natural resources, at that time, the Soil Conservation Service. But see, I didn't know. I thought I needed to finish school, that I didn't need the experience. He saw that I needed that. He waited on me after class. Come go with me, always had an excuse. Make a long story short, one day I took him up on his word. And he walked with me from that ag class over to the corporate education department. And Gwen, you know the story. Within 2 weeks, I had a summer job up in Kansas. Mom and Dad gave me the last dollar they had, an old car we had, and took me in that direction. Folks, what I'm saying is, I came here today, not just from Washington, D.C., because I'm a part of this community. And I know that if we're going to have a future, that we're going to have conservation programs, it's not just about signing up. Anybody can sign up. We need folks funded, and we need folks getting money and adjusting programs. So I stand here at this particular moment alongside Mike Sullivan, State Conservation. And our commitment to you and all the NRCS employees out there is that this is not just another meeting. It's the same conversation Dr. Calvin King been having, is that we need and will do more. So when we talk about the funding within the Natural Resources Conservation Service, our motto is helping people help the land. I heard the conversation this morning talk about structural barriers, right? Things that prevent us. I was talking to an individual a little while ago, who was talking a little bit about, and USDA, there's also, if you're a social disadvantage, limited resources, beginning farmer, there's opportunities for you from FSA, rural development, NRCS. There are certain things you're eligible for that you may not have to pay the fee for. So we need to spend time being sure that the folks we work with are not only fully engaged, but they are aware. I heard someone talk to me a little bit this morning, talked about that their district conservations call them when opportunities arise. We all need to call each other. This is not just about whether wearing a suit, not about the office. I remind folks, Reginald, that I'm a public servant. And who do I work for? I work for you. And if I work for you, you don't like what I'm doing, you need to tell me. So I want you to remember that I work for you. And throughout the course of the day, and after this particular session, I hope we have an opportunity to visit. Because just like I told those individuals in Atlanta the other day, about 150 of them, that the chief, Terry Cosby, is going to hire approximately 3,000 individuals over the next 2 years. And if they will work with us and we work with them, all they may not want to be with NRCS or USDA, but we're going to work with them and help them get wherever they want to be. Because you see, it's not just about that person. It's about the generation. If we can help somebody, it not only changes them, it changes every generation. I heard a young lady in the back talk about holding on to the farm. And I want you to know that I almost could over my piece, because holding on to the farm is a commitment that we made to mom and dad. It's a commitment that we made to grandpa and grandma, that we were gonna hold on to the farm. So it's not just about conservation. It's about family. Making things better. And I want you to know that I'm not just here on behalf of Chief Terry Cosby to give a presentation. I'm here because, like Cindy Portier said, what I do represents my mom and dad. I can't do anything that makes them look bad. It's something about the name. So let me tell you a few things that we've done. A few things we've done, and when we talk about these, I want you to hear them because it's not only things that we've done in the past, it's what we're trying to do now. So when I talk about things, I'm talking about you. Okay, I'm talking about relationships. I'm talking about making things work on your phone. You know, I think about, we gave $50 million out last year. And the chief said on about a month ago, well, about a couple months ago, I think Mike does in a meeting, that he's gonna put out $100 million to historically underserved communities. Now that's not nearly enough money. But like my daddy told me, he said, boy, that's enough to get started. Well, I want us to work close together. You seen the district conservations in here. You seen Gwen and Marshall. I don't always miss somebody, but you see Mike's team here. Folks, let's communicate. The system of operation, let's communicate. Let's work together and make these things happen. You know, I stopped by home the other day. You know, I was coming here and just a few miles away. So I drove by the yard and my sister came out. She said, Mama said that was you. I told her that the car, taping him, the car looked different. It just reminded me that nobody knows you like Mama. And I told him, my supervisor called me this morning. He said, did you go by the house? I said, you know it did. I went by there not just to go see Mama. Because sometimes Mama tells me, she said, I just want to lay eyes on you. What I'm just telling you is that NRCS just want to lay eyes on you. We just want to stop by and visit with you to be sure that what we're doing is working right. Because, you know, I stand on the shoulders and we stand on the shoulders. I know I do. I stand on the shoulders, ALP, and we talked about it, on the shoulders of each of you. I would not be where I am, not that I'm any place special, but I would not be where I am if it were not for you. For the work that you've done back home in those communities, long before I was ever a dream, you fought for me. You worked for me. I can't be what I ought to be until you are what you ought to be. Folks, the chief wanted me to convey to you that his top priority is equity. And equity is not just putting money out there, but equity is equitable. And me and Mike had conversations, and Mike, right here in Arkansas, 2 out of every 3 applications goes to historically underserved. Matter of fact, Mike mentioned this morning in the I won't get too, I mentioned acronym, BIL, bipartisan infrastructure legislation. We've got a number of dollars to go in, I call it poor communities, living resource areas. Here in Arkansas, we're putting $95 million in those communities. That's 20% of the total allocation. That money went to about 13 states. Arkansas stood up. Thank you, Dr. Goldman, for your leadership over the department. Help push this. That money is going into communities here. And let me just mention to you, it's kind of what I had a conversation. You know, I have a lot of conversations with Calvin Trice. Calvin Trice, one thing Calvin Trice would not ever let me do. He would not ever let me find an excuse. Not ever find an excuse, because excuses are what? They're monuments of nothingness. They build bridges to nowhere. And those becomes a massive of nothingness. So when it comes to NRCS, there is no excuse. Either we do it or we don't. And so this $95 million, we'll put it in communities. Mike is leading that effort on behalf of the chief and NRCS. He's leading that effort, working with folks like Calvin Trice, identifying, working with the Mayor's Association. Folks, I want to hide the mic and tell you, we are doing things different. Okay. Somebody said this morning is, I think that somebody left the gate open. We're doing things different. Hey, you might. And folks have to understand that we don't know, folks don't always agree. My mom always tell me, she said, you look like, you want to say something? No, man. She knew I didn't agree, but that wasn't important, right? So in that particular instance there, for both of us, there's conversations we have, there's conversations we push. But when I look around this room and I see each of you, I see me. Chief Terry Cosby sees you. He's from a little small town, not far from here. If you look over the horizon on a clear day, and there's not many clouds, and look right beyond the Mississippi River, he stays right there on the other side, a little place called Batesville, in a little old small town where his mom and dad had nothing. But they were able to raise all those kids on the land they had. And every day I talk to him, he tells me, James, we gotta do more. We gotta do more. We gotta be the difference. So I want to convey to you, when we talk about this RA money, Mike, Calvin and his team is taking care of the 95 million, working through that process. With the Inflation Reduction Act money, the chief mentioned very clearly, I need each of you to make a commitment. Go by your local NRCS office or NRCS service center. Have a conversation. We'll get involved in urban conservation. Because we know that in urban communities, there's people of color, there's Native Americans, there's tribes. We're getting involved in tribal communities. So we're creating urban office and we're going to adjust our conservation practices. I was visiting with the state conservation, I think, about 2 days ago, who has, even before the urban offices, Dr. Goldman, he's getting individuals in the urban community who may have 1/10 of an acre or have a garden in the back doing conservation work. He's getting them in the CSP program. Not all of them, but they're working and moving for the CSP program. That's an acronym, right? The Conservation Security Program, where they're getting conservation payments. That's totally different than historically has been. But we're going to make it different. The chief demand that we make it different. So I ask you to get involved in that. Get involved in local work groups. Get involved in state tech committees. I hope to leave every one of you my telephone number. Now, Mike said call him too. Call Mike. Call Mike. But always when I was home, my mama told me to do something. Either my sister, so I'm going to tell me something, my sister, or either my daddy or others would say, now you heard mama say, did you do it? So all I'm saying is, I like to check up and be sure. Because even as regional conservation, I know they're going to do it, right? But the same token, like my grandmama said, come over the house, son. She knew I was all right. She said, just let me lay eyes on you. And what she was really telling me was that I want to check on you. I want to be sure you're okay. I want you to know this thing that I got right here, this is not a job. This is a commitment and a duty. Right? Folks, we're not here by accident. We're here because folks long before us fought for this moment and dreamed of this moment and never got a chance to realize it, but they're able to see it through us. And I want to, ma'am, I want to be that when folks call my name, they may not remember everything I did or anything I did. Maybe they just be to remember that he did something that was good. Let me leave a story with you. I didn't go through all my notes, but I hope I mentioned enough to let you know that we're going to sit down at the table with you. But I remember a few years ago, I said a few years ago, Mike, time has gone so fast, but I remember probably about, the first administration under President Obama. We were in South Carolina, and I remember Secretary Vilsack was there. We had a listening session. Mr. Ivan, Secretary Vilsack had about 6 folks on the podium. There's about 400 or 500 folks gathered around, and when he finished that panel, he asked those folks, Mr. Barnett, he asked those folks one question to finish it up. He asked me, he said, if USDA could do one thing for you to make your farm and your life better, what would that be? Calvin, of all 6 folks, I can't remember what the first person said. I can't remember what the second person said. But the last gentleman, an elderly gentleman, who looked like me, he kind of slowly stood up and made his way to the podium. In his raspy voice, he said, Mr. Secretary, he said, if DA could do one thing for my farm and me, it would be to meet people where they are. I think what he's really saying was that, Mr. Secretary, where I live at, in my community, everybody can't read like everybody else. So I need that NRCS office to sit down with me, spend a little time and work with me. I don't have a computer in my neighborhood. So I need you to kind of print things off a little bit. I believe, I'm not sure what he was saying, but I believe when he said meet people where they are, I believe that's what he was saying. So I want you to know that USDA, NRCS came here today and tomorrow to meet you where you are. But they have a period, you always say that, let's sit down, let's work our way through. If it's not quite right, we'll start over again. Folks, we got work to do. We got a task ahead. Like my daddy always told me when I was a little boy. My daddy we used to add rooms to the house. See, some of you don't know about that. That old house started out a little small. We used to add rooms to it. When I get home from school, he nailing nails after work. And he called me out and I started getting those woods, cutting that wood, and he said, son, nail that nail in there. And I hit that nail and knock it all half sideways. Every once in a while, Reggie, I'd get that nail and I'd hit it. I hit it soft. And I hit it again, Corey, and it would sink that nail. And my daddy tell me, he said, son, you hit the nail on the head. And I want you to know, I will tell you like my daddy said. I think today, Dr. King, I think we hit the nail on the head. But I tell you, you got a lot more nails in there. Let's stay strong. Let's do it. And let's move forward together and make a difference. Not just for us, but for all those little that are yet to be born. Thank you very much.
What did you turn down? It's Bud.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was a very, very inspiring, touching speech. Sermon. For those of you who have traveled a long distance, particularly those who travel all the way from Illinois to be at this meeting and be a member of the organization, you see it was all working. You wouldn't have heard that on AM, FM, Sirius, no way else. You'd be right here. Get that. So But we did record it too, though. Sometimes you have to go back and listen to messages like that again. I understand, it'll say, the past, if I'm looking at your present and what the future looks like, where you think you will be in the future, that's what you want to hear. To understand where you come from, what you've gone through, what you've addressed, how you addressed it. And then the present position, that's how he was able to take that hammer and he hit the nail on the head. All right. He bet it so many times. And it missed. Probably hit his thumb. Then he said, probably when he hit his thumb, he said, I got it right this time. But children, as always, we're so grateful, really appreciative of the work that you do and that of NRCS, Natural Resource Conservation Services for sure. Both of for its outreach investments as well as this program, direct program service investments. And I want to do what I'm supposed to do at this point in time. You know, JD like to pick on me sometimes, for some reason, Mike. I guess you noticed, though. He like to give me a hard time. But JD said, and we argued back and forth about this theme. To say the legacy of equity and equality for all. You know, what does the present and future hold? So he had no problem with what does the present and future hold. See, well, he definitely knows our present position and how we got here in this position. We will see what the future holds, depending on what we do now. He said, but that legacy part of equity and equality, we lost equity. We haven't had equality. And that's what got us to a point of present of where we are. I said, I get it, JD. I get it. I said, but it has a meaning. And the meaning of the legacy of equity and equality is that there are people who are sitting here in this room. The one I gave mention to this morning, that's a part of the legacy. The family from Illinois, that's a part of the legacy. Now, the legacy itself speaks to the fact that there's been a struggle. And this is the child, this 1890 homestead family farm that still exists. That's legacy. And a part of that legacy and the history that goes with that, there were many barriers, there were many struggles in the process, but then their present position is that they steadfast. And they understood Black land retention, they held on to the farm. That's part of that legacy, Diddy. Now, another part of the legacy, there have been many losses for various other reasons, because of the barriers, because of laws, and about other means. That's the legacy also, but the results of that were losses. And that loss took away equity. That was where fairness did not exist and does not exist today. And there are people who have represented us in voice, and this is what it's about, on the legacy. There are people who have represented us not just being in place, but in voice. Mr. Tillman say he stand on the shoulders of others, like Miss Annie Zachary Pike. Now, Miss Annie Zachary Pike, the person whom we are honoring here today, she is a part of the legacy. Y'all talked about that 1890 history of y'all homestead. Miss Annie Zachary Pike also, she has a history, her family, land ownership, and a legacy as well, and retention of that farm from one generation to the next generation. I don't think Ms. Pike would mind me saying, I think you probably almost 50, right? I was fortunate to speak at a recognition program for her at Phillips County Community College, and understanding that legacy of her family and the contributions she's made. So she wasn't one that was just there for herself and her family, but she was there for others as well. She was always a voice. She would always take up the space, and she would be a voice. Now, you know, sometimes you have situations when you have a listening session. You have a listening session and people listen, but they don't hear. They listen but don't hear. No, just because somebody listens to you don't mean it doesn't mean they heard a word you said. Not a word you said, be it intentionally or unintentionally. But don't hear a word you say. You probably did with your parents sometime. You know, now in those cases, but there were consequences too. But you know, in that whole process, but she was not, and she is not, and has not been a part of, as far as her past is concerned and her legacy concerned. She was there, and when they say they was listening, Ms. Pike was there as a voice to make sure that they heard. So sometimes she would have to remind them, I don't think you heard me. And what I said, I don't think you heard or you understand exactly what the situation is with my people. So that's a part of the legacy also, JD, and those that were in the community, those who are in the community, those who understand the struggle, those who understand the needs. And Ms. Pike, I saw her, as Brother Tillman was talking, she started clapping her hands because you know, she was happy to see this another generation. And he's a boy, you like to hear that kind of voice, don't you? So just in case they're listening, you know, like she has been and still is, Mr. Tillman is gonna make sure that he's heard. And that what they're hearing is really what the real issues are that exist with the disenfranchised segments of our population. I'm going to, again, this, see, I'm gonna tell you, when you be dealing with folks my age, JD, and you gave you stuff and they stack stuff on top of something, I'm looking forward to another location. But we got this award, and I'm, Ms. Pike, you stay right where you are, I'm coming to you. Okay, you have earned the point that I will come to you on this particular award, but I do want to make sure that others get a picture with you, Mr. Tillman and Mr. Sullivan, and if Mr. Goldman is still here, Mr. Goldman as well, because this is the Legacy Award. It's Arkansas Land and Community Development Corporation 2022 Lifetime Legacy Achievement Award. Now, you know, we couldn't put her whole bio in the program and all the things that she's done, and I've read and went through just a short summary, because trust me, it's long. She has served and she has worked at the national level. She was very, very, very much so a part of the Rockefellers' leadership here in Arkansas. And again, she has had a number of national appointments where she represented the state of Arkansas as well, as relates to, and this was back in the day, folks. I mean, it's tough now. But think about what it was like in the 50s in the fight, in the 60s and 70s. Think about, we're talking about the civil rights movement. We're talking about the civil rights movement, the time and era when she was there, and she had to stand before individuals and say, this is what the needs are and what exists for my people. This is what fairness should look like. This is what fairness should be like. Now that's how long the road has been. And so when you see Miss Annie Zachary Pike as a lifetime legacy, and you see a James Tillman as a present appointed position of where he is now, to understand the legacy of equity and equality, and where it's represented from the past and all the way up to the present, and the message is still the same. We need to get there, because understanding your present, and that's why it says future. The point is, JD, we're not there yet. Understanding the present position. But Dr. Anna Zachary Pike, in recognition for accepting the leadership call to duty, and her dedication, commitment, and contribution in service as a voice for equity and equality for the underserved segments of the population in our community, state, and the nation. And this is Arkansas Land and Farm Development Corporation 42nd Annual Conference and Membership Meeting, October 28, 2022. And I hope you clearly understood 2, 3 words that were said. Not just her contribution, but the fact that she accepted the leadership call. Now, I'm sure y'all clearly understand what that means. Everybody don't accept the leadership call, they will not take a leadership role. Because I'm not talking about positions you're paid to be in. I know what she paid for. She's a farmer and farm family and everything. And successful with that, but school teacher, I think also what she done. But she accepted the leadership call as a representative and to do service for her community. Mr. Tillman say it's not just a job. So it can't be just a job, it's like a calling as well. And she accepted the calling. So I'm gonna come down and I want to get them to, if they would. And Mr. Sullivan, Tillman, is Mr. Goldman still here? I think he has to go, he has to. I just want you to stand, Ms. Franklin. And I do want you to know this is your home, but you gotta go to camera. I want you to hold this right here. Appreciate it. I'm just like, we should come around because we have people on virtually and we record this and we're gonna put it back out there again. I want to make sure everybody knows who you are and what this is all about on this legislative side. I want to just recognize a couple of others, and Ms. Miller's gonna come. We have here also, because I can't call all the names and those who are no longer here with us. Part of the legacy and a part of the history of the road for which we've prided over the years. But as the gentleman, his wife is here. I know we have the ones from Illinois, but his wife told me today that he is 91 years old. But as he was coming down the sidewalk this morning, I was just so happy to see him. You know, we only missed 2 years. But it seemed like forever, because seeing that face in the sun that I don't see anymore now, sort of faded. But all I want you to just, Mr. Evans, you just raise your hand. Mr. Evans. He was the one that he told me to explain the legacy. If you're still here, that's a part of the legacy. I'm going to explain this legacy here. And what all this legacy is represented. He's a part of the organization since our beginning. He's a part of the history, the land ownership of the African American farmer. So over the years, a mentor and supporter for other farmers beginning from. So that's some of the, and I mean, with all the barriers and all the challenges that he's endured, as that spiritual son say, I'm still here. And he's still here. I'm going to have if Ms. Miller will come forward at this point, she's our Vice President, Chief Operating Officer for the organization, to give the other recognition. I'm going to come back with the closing remarks. And again, we appreciate all of you who are here, those who come to be a part, as we try to make this comeback after COVID. And, you know, I feel really good about it. Thank you.
Okay. Good afternoon. I know we've been in here for quite some time and I'm not one to prolong the time, but I can absolutely say this has been a wonderful event and all the speakers, we appreciate you for coming out and giving the information that was provided. One of our presentations that was supposed to be given was to Mr. Lavelle, but he's not able to be with us today. But he received the Arkansas Land and Community Development Corporation 2022 Legacy Achievement Award for Public and Community Service, and that's going to be presented to him at a later date. I do want to stand and recognize our board members that are here. If you all could just either stand or wave your hands. We appreciate you for coming in. These are Dr. King's bosses. Yeah. So we appreciate them. Our staff who has worked so hard to make sure that this event has turned out the way that it has. Wave your hands or stand, however you want to do it. You know, some of them are not in here. They're still out in the kitchen and stuff like that, but we appreciate you all. I want to remind our board members and our members that immediately following this, we will have our meeting back there in the back. So stay. And I also want to recognize Miss Evelyn Bryan. She's a previous board member. So Ms. Bryan is here, so we thank her for being with us. Is there anything else? Any elected or officials or anyone that's running for office, are you in the house? Okay. So we want to just congratulate you all, wish you well on the election, you know, and hope it turns in your favor. If there is nothing else, we're going to get ready to adjourn. I know you all are ready and we're not going to hold you up.
Well, people, this is our end, again, our closing. Thank you, Ms. Spiller. Again, our morning speaker, Dr. Goldman, and we have evaluation. Let's see, my boss just told me, do not forget your job. Ms. Brown, who's a board member, please complete the evaluation. Please complete the evaluation, turn the evaluations in. Please do that. And the board really be on us about evaluation plan, evaluation program, evaluation of events. Please turn those in, and I hope they're good, because then the board evaluates me, you know, after that. So, but turn the evaluations in, complete those, we really appreciate it. Yeah, I want to thank USDA, Natural Resource Conservation Services, USDA Rural Development Farm Service Agency, Department of Human Services, and the State Department of Agriculture. Are they still here? Raise your hand. State Department of Agriculture. Yeah. Who? Okay, she's in the back. Oh, she's in the back. Arkansas State Department of Agriculture, Forestry Services, Ms. Yvette Browning, who works with forestry, who's also with us here today. Again, thank you very much. We'll look forward to seeing you at the next event. When you hear about us, or you see a flyer, get a letter in the mail, and if the event don't be in your area, we'd appreciate it if you show up, come and be a part of those. And that's an ongoing process. Mr. James Tillman, Dr. Goldman, you all set the pace, and I tell you what, you carried it all the way through. Thank you very much. Good.